Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Hello. I'm up on stage after all. Welcome. It's great to see so many people here this evening, even socially distanced. Really great to welcome you here this evening. It was quite a different event last year. It was a unique and special event, but that was obviously brought about by something absolutely enormous that none of us really expected. And it meant that we were online, of course. So it was a very unique time, a unique moment for different reasons for the trust. So it's great to be back here in person, in real life, with the community, with the trust that is now led by members of the community. So again, thank you all for being here this afternoon, this evening. I'm just going to say a couple of words of introduction, and then we're going to move into the formal business, where we have some resolutions that I'm sure many of you will be well used to. And then we'll move forward to having a Q&A session facilitated by our CEO, Venu. And that's where we'll invite any questions and any discussion and hopefully get good feedback on what's going right, what's going wrong, what's happening well and quickly, and what's happening far too slowly. So as I say, it was a very different space last year, 2020, when myself and other community members came onto the trust, came onto the board, and began the transformation of the organization. It was a year of real internal work. No doubt it will have been work that many people in the community really wouldn't have seen. And why would they? But it was a huge commitment from our board of trustees, from our executive, from our staff, from our tenants, from everybody who engaged in that first year of having a new board and a new leadership, trying to bring about a new Westway Trust. But 2021 has been really about coming back out. It's been about coming back out into our community and beginning to re-engage with people, many of whom had gotten to a point of complete disengagement. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be a quick process for everybody. We have multiple relationships in multiple states of repair and disrepair. And Westway Trust, our staff, our trustees, our co-opted members of committees, our members, our tenants have to work every day to building and rebuilding those relationships. I know looking out here today, I can see many faces where I know those conversations, those dialogues are happening, and actions are being taken. And again, I would say for some people too slow, for some people just right, but that's the work, and that's what we've been doing. That's what 2021 has been all about. So I stand here today as someone who feels a lot more confident now, 2 years into my 3-year term, that we're heading in the right direction. Last year, online, at our AGM, I wasn't so sure. I wasn't so sure if I'd stood back, where the trust would have gone to. Whereas now I feel far more confident than ever before that it is going to continue heading in the right direction. because these dialogues are taking place, because more and more people are re-engaging, because we're building stronger and stronger connections with the people of this community. And I have to give a huge thanks, as I say, to the people who are doing that, who are engaging with us every day in so many different ways. Thank you. So we've begun to bring about a transformation. And of course, we've been slapped with a global pandemic that none of us saw coming. And we are, it seems, beginning to get through that and continue the transformation of Westway Trust. But as we all know in this community, there are other things that apply pressure on us every single day beyond COVID, because this community has been hit hard by austerity and the cuts to local councils. It's been hit hard by regeneration and the relentless machine that has tried to take people's homes and has, in many instances, moved thousands of people out of this area. And of course, we have Grenfell on top of all of the other traumas that people in this community have faced. And so now, 21, 22, the Trust does have to move forward and be there for our community as much as it can. It's a more vital resource than ever before. And so with this in mind, I'd like to ask everyone please to take some silence to remember those who lost their lives in the Grenfell Tower fire, those who lost loved ones, friends and family, those who deal with the ongoing impact of that night and everything that followed, and also those who live with austerity and regeneration. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so next on we're going to begin with some apologies for absence. If I had my list. That's helpful. So apologies from Abundance Arts, All Saints Catholic College, Catalyst Housing, Coronation Court Residents Association, Echoes of Spain, 1936-39 project, Help, Counselling and Support, Kensington and Chelsea Mind, Latimer Community Church, Portobello Business Centre, Tavistock Crescent Residents Association, Westway Community Transport, and Women's Pioneer Housing Residents Associations. Thank you very much for all those apologies. And now we move into the formal business. And our first item is for members to approve the minutes of the 2020 annual general meeting held on 15th of December 2020. So to begin with, are there any comments or amendments, edits? Piers. That's a good question. I think we can we respond to those? The one about the auditor, yes, we can respond to that now. And then if you could hold the other two, if that's okay.
Sorry, I asked last year why we nod through every year the auditors who've been with us since the bad old days, and someone was going to have a look at that. I realise that you've had a lot on your minds. Have you had a chance to do that?
Thank you, Piers. We did have a chance to discuss that. And what we decided was because there were so few senior staff, both in our finance team and obviously the CEO, who were present at the time, the years that we're looking back, we felt this year the auditor provided us with some stability. And we think that for the following year. But after that, we're committed to going out to tender.
Thank you, Venu. Is you okay with that, or is there? It's okay. Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions around the minutes of last year's AGM? No. Okay. Well, I do want to thank those who wrote the minutes for a start, because it was an important AGM, and obviously it was a very challenging AGM, as I've said, a very unique one. So they are quite a set of minutes. So I just want to extend my thanks to our head of governance for getting those through. Thank you. Thank you. Luke. Okay, so there's no fence yet. That's something, Venu, you can pick up. Yeah, if we can come back to that in the Q&A session, facilitated at the end. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So could we have a proposer and a seconder for that, please? Either a member or a trustee. Yeah, we have a proposer, number 10, and a seconder. Yeah, could you just say? Great, thank you. Kensington Dragons, thank you very much. Okay, so if we could move on, please, to the first ordinary resolution. Do we have to? On the minutes, yeah? Okay, yep, absolutely. Okay, so we have a vote for the minutes, please. If you can raise your hands with your tickets so that we can count them. Thank you. kind of different. Have we got a confirmed number? 18. Venu has 19. It's like bingo. Venu has 19. You have 15. Okay, apologies. Could we put the cards higher, please? I'll use my eagle eyesight to do it. I've got 17. Okay, thank you very much. Cheers. Okay, so move on to number 4, the ordinary resolution. And this is to receive the trustees' annual report and accounts and auditor's report for the year ended 31st of March 2021. So could we have questions and comments, please? Piers. Yeah.
Yes. Last year, obviously the 2-2 report was an absolutely crucial part of moving forward, though there does seem to be a lack of transparency about the costs. Last year, we agreed in this meeting, or the meeting online, that £30,000 had been, or £31,000 had been booked for 19/20. I mean, I may not have the eyes for it, but I couldn't see where the further costs for the 2-2 report were in this year's accounts.
Okay, thank you, Piers. Again, is that something we'd want to come back to at the end? Yeah, we'll come back to that point at the end. Thank you. Any further questions or comments on the accounts for 2021? No? Okay, so can we have a motioner, please, for the resolution? Yeah, Piers. And a seconder, please. Yeah. What was it? Open Age. Thank you, Open Age. Okay, and put that to the vote, please. Could you raise your cards now, please, as high as you can? I've got 15. 16, I've got Tom. 16. 17, because Tom's twice. Yep. 17. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so now we are going to have Tom Fitch, who is the chair of our Finance and Risk Committee, to do a brief presentation on these finances and take you through some of the numbers from the last year and from the annual report. Over to you, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks, Toby. Okay, I want to start off. I thought you were going to have the accounts in front of you as typed bits of paper, but they're probably gone out in the post and you haven't. Page 25, this is the auditor's comment, which says it's a true and fair view of the state of the charities affairs on the 31st of March, and it's applied to general accountancy principles and to the Companies Act. When you get audited accounts or independent examinations, it's always worth reading what the independent examiner or the auditor has said. It's normally in a few bullet points like that. There's a lot of legal stuff which goes first, and there's a lot of legal stuff which goes afterwards. But this is the point where the auditor will say, it was a complete load of rubbish, and I couldn't understand why it all came in cardboard boxes and it didn't add up. But it'll be buried in legal language, which you have to unpick. But if it says generally unsatisfactory, you know you should be asking a question. This says it's all okay, so I'm delighted I get through another year. Okay, if we go on to slide 2, you haven't got. We had an income of just under 6 million, and we had expenditure of 6.8 million. We made a loss of 1.2 million. That loss is almost entirely due to COVID. We hadn't planned a loss before COVID struck. COVID struck March before that financial year, so it came in March 19. This financial year starts in April 19. So that is the impact of COVID, is that we had a loss of 1.2 million. The previous year, we made a surplus of 1.4 million. Part of that was that Westway Trust was, I won't say suffering, was experiencing a campaign from W23, which meant it had great difficulty spending money on building shops on Acton Market and other areas. So the campaign actually slowed up the spend rate. It was quite convenient because it means the 2 years together just about balance out. We actually came in and found that there was a lot of money in the bank. And I was saying to one of the accountants earlier, it was like coming into a castle. You see those Hollywood films. We came into a finance meeting and it said 4 million in the bank. And I said, well, where is it? And the staff looked puzzled. I said, well, where is it? I mean, is it on 5-year deposit or something? And they said, no, it's instantly available. And I was completely shocked. It's like you get into the castle, you go down to the dungeons, and there's £4 million. But that was just one of our amazing experiences. Okay, let's move on. We had in grants, no, sorry, go back one page. Sorry. We had in grants, we had 883,000. If when you read these accounts, you look at the notes, if we go to note 2, that tells you how that 883,000, where it came from. And one of the things I'm trying you to understand is when you pick up our accounts or anybody's accounts, you don't read from the front to the back. You read the two main statements, one of which is called a statement of financial affairs, or if it's a community interest company, a profit and loss account. That is the story of the whole year. That is all the money that came in during the year and all the money that was spent during the year. The second document is the balance sheet, and that's basically a photograph of what happened at midnight on the 31st of March, how much we owed and how much we were owing. So if you think about that, you've got to read those 2 pages, one of which you've already seen. We're now digging into the numbers. We had 883,000 coming in grants. The vast bulk of that, not the bulk of it, 385,000 came from the government in the way of coronavirus furlong payments. So we picked up almost 400,000 off the government for the virus and furlong payments. And the balance nearly all came in from RBKC. In fact, I'm pretty sure it did all come in from RBKC. 462,000 in grants, which goes through adult learning, which is the biggest chunk, supplementary schools, the creche, parenting. Basically, we're getting about $500,000 off the Borough Council, which is something you should know about. The balance of the money is rent, so our main earner is rent. If we move on to, I was going to look at note. Okay, you've got a column here which is general funds, which is money we can spend on anything we want within the charitable objectives, and our charitable objectives are any charitable objective. So there's 13 objectives that we can spend money on, including sport, environment, leisure, poverty, health. We've got, that's your general fund. This is where we've designated things. So we might have said, well, we want to spend some money on the sports centre, or we want to spend some money on the pavements or whatever. This is restricted funds, which means the funder has said we can only spend it on something very specific. So here the government has said 326,000 for staff for coronavirus grants, and here the borough has said 478,000 mainly for learning type stuff. So you've got these 2 columns are pretty much spend on any charitable objective. This is restricted by the funder. That's your total, and this is the year before. So you can look at this year and the year before, and you can see that we've gone from 503 to 883. So there's a big jump. I don't want to spend too much time on this. If we have a quick look at the expenditure, have I? Okay, sorry. So on the expenditure, this is charitable activities, I hope. Expenditure on charitable activities, that 2823 ties up to the previous slide. And the main things which come out of this is a lot is going out on depreciation because we own a lot of assets. Our staff costs are during that year are the biggest item. When you read this stuff, look at the big numbers. Don't worry about the small numbers. It's the big numbers which will kill you if it goes wrong. Lots of people, they might spend £20, £30, £200, well, £50 on groceries or whatever, and they tend to sort of dig into the small numbers because they feel confident about it. If you're going to ask a question about what one of the 3 biggest numbers on the page, because that's where either the bad news or the good news is. So what I'm trying to show you is we had one number on the statement of financial affairs, and that's the breakdown. So you go to your notes and you find out what it was spent on, and then you can come back with a difficult question of, I'm trying to think, 3,000. IT costs. What are IT costs? 161,000. I'll tell you a joke about that. When I looked at IT costs when we came in, I said, look, that's an enormous amount of money. Why are we spending so much? They said, well, we've actually got this anti-hacking software, which is very expensive to stop W23 hacking our financial system and all our information. And I thought, well, we get it on memory sticks anyway. I mean, it's all there. So. But no, the previous management have put up enormous defences against W23. And part of the IT cost is we're still running a 5-year contract on that. But I'm not going to encourage you to test it out. Please don't hack us. Just we'll get rid of the contract at some time in the future. Shall we move on a page? That's right. So we're doing 6. Note 6. Bad debts. Okay. 2.2 million. We've had to write off in one way or another 2.2 million in debts. That's money which we would have collected in rent, which we haven't collected because of the virus. A large part of it relates to everyone active and government legislation, which they backdated some of the legislation, which is unusual. Toby knows the name of it. It's Coronavirus Act. Don't worry. What was the legislation? Don't worry. Anyway, change of law. It was a change of law. Okay, so the previous management signed an excellent contract with EA. They've got various names, but I'll call them Everyone Active for the moment. And we make a lot of money out of it. It's about a quarter of our income. It's a good chunk of money. But the government then did a change in law, and it backdated the change in law. And that made it very difficult for us to collect the rent. So a lot of time was spent with solicitors. And this figure is made up partly of the Everyone Active stuff, partly on concessions. The arcade obviously did very badly during lockdown because there were no shoppers. So we've had to negotiate with a lot of our tenants just because we want them to survive. We were advised quite seriously that if you lose your tenants now, you might not be able to relet the premises after the virus is gone. Whether that was true or not, I don't know, but that's what we were told. So what I wanted to draw out is that one way or another, we've written down 2.2 million. On a lot of it, we've retained the title. So we're not actually collecting the money, but we've retained it in the accounts, which is the prudent thing to do. You show roughly your worst picture in the accounts. If we move on, page 30, this is the balance sheet. This is the year we're looking at. This is the previous year, so you can compare one to the other. What you should do when you look at this is look at the current assets immediately, because that's what keeps you alive. And what it says is on the 31st of March 21, we had debtors of 670,000. That's people owing us rent. We had cash at the bank of 3.6 million, and we had, well, short-term deposits is Charity and Churches deposit fund. It's very similar to the bank. We basically had cash of 366,000, and we had cash in the bank of 1.6. So we had 5.9 in current assets. If we look at note 15 and just see how real that figure is, this figure, note 15, right, you've got your trade debtors. These are things we think we're going to collect. Bad debt provision, that's mainly on arcade and what I would call small rentals. And this one is mainly, it's called Sports and Leisure Management Limited. There, I've tended to call it Everyone Active, which is their marketing name. These are down here as debts because we've got to get the Charities Commission to write them off. Basically, we cannot write money off with a commercial tenant without the Charity Commission saying so. The reason is all the money we've got is beneficiaries' money. So basically, all the money we've got is your money and the other 58,000 people in North Kensington. It's in one of the figures. It's in the booklet. But we only act as trustees. We hold that money in trust for you. It's actually your money. And part of the reason is it would be quite complicated for you to all make a decision on the spending 58,000 of you or however many. And I'm not going to go into the details. It's just the way charities are designed since Elizabeth I, when people didn't have social media and computers and stuff like that. Goes back a long way. But I do want you to realize always that The money Westway Trust has is your money. It's the community's money. You are the beneficiaries, and we exist for the beneficiaries. We don't exist for the trustees, and don't think I'm being rude at all, but we don't exist for the staff. We employ the staff to service you, to provide you with sports, to provide you with grants, decent gardens, all sorts of things. That's the reason why we have staff, is to provide things for the beneficiaries. Okay, now that being said, we can't write this money off until the Charity Commission says so in writing. They've actually said, yes, it's okay, do it, but we haven't got the document through yet. The other, that number's the same as that number. It's always worth looking at numbers that are the same. That number's the same as that number, just to see whether they've made mistakes. The amount of proofreading you do on one of these documents is colossal. Do you want to move on one slide? On the balance sheet, okay, we've looked at the current assets. These fixed assets, for a charity like ours, they're not very exciting. It's a big number, but you can't do very much with them. This hall, Maxilla Hall, is almost certainly on our balance sheet. It's going to be here like this for a long time. Bramley's out the back will be here for a long time. So it's not an item that you can change. Your current assets are much more serious, because that's what you pay the staff with at the end of the month. It's what you pay out the grant program with. What number have I got there? What's my next? Do you want to flip over? Liabilities. This is what we owe other people, okay? And you can be pretty certain it's all real. They're all going to ask us for money. When you do your year-by-year comparison, the thing which jumps out is that we owe a lot more in tax than we did in the previous year, and that's because the government kindly said we could pay the tax late, so we just took advantage of that. The money stayed in the bank, earned a very small amount of interest. Okay, we also the tenant depository, we hold other people's money, like if the tenants put down a deposit of 3 months' rent or whatever. That's not our money, it's not your money, it's the tenant's money, because it's a deposit. And there's a little bit of that sort of thing in the service charges as well. Do you want to move on? Right. This is the funds, okay? Obviously, the word is funds. If we look at the restricted funds, this is nearly all property. It reflects money that was granted to us to build some of the buildings. We can't do a lot about that. It's all, I was going to say it's all basically in the restricted fund, but basically, yeah, it's all in the restricted fund. So we can't do a lot about it, so we don't need to do a lot of thinking. It's just saying those properties, particularly the Malton Mews properties, are worth about 10 million quid. On the unrestricted funds, again, this is in property, so we can't change our minds on it. It's already been spent. It's money we've put into the commercial buildings. The next line is money we put into the charity buildings, not so much, 17. We've then got these three things which are reasonable to ask questions about. The 759,000 is a fund which we're building up for the sports centre. Basically, we're getting about 1.6 million in rent off the sports centre in a good year, so it's about a quarter of our income. Every 10 years, we plan to refurbish that. We've inherited that policy from the previous management, and we haven't changed the policy. We've got to keep it smart because we're competing against Virgin Active and other West London sports centres, so it's sort of got to stay reasonably state of the art. So every year, we put in about $250,000 into that fund, and then every 10 years we do a refurbishment. Because of COVID, we've actually missed 1 year on it, and we'll catch up at a later date or see whether it can be phased. Yeah, do you want to ask the question? We do, yeah. Yeah, it's about, I was going to say 106. It's not on this page. But it is in there. It is in there as rental income.
I thought that income is quite a large income.
Yeah, it is. It's just
million or something, isn't it?
Iffy.
So why isn't it on your sheet?
Yeah, it's 165,000 each tower. Okay, roughly 365,000 each tower. It's a lot of money.
Why is it not on your sheet then?
It's in the rent. Where's it?
What?
I lost it.
But wouldn't it say money from towers, 300 and something? No. Where does it say that from the towers?
Go back to the sofa. I want the sofa. You're doing okay there. Can you go back another page? Go back. No, go back again. No, go back again because it's... Yeah, carry on going back. I shouldn't have taken the question. Okay, carry on. It's in... income, land and property rentals, Grover's car park. It's in land and property rentals. It's in this 4774 figure.
But that's like its own. If that's its own thing, and it's like that should be. Don't you? I'm not saying it should be. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Don't you think that should say income from towers or income from?
Well, it could. We can break it down next time.
Because it's a bit. How much does it say you get from that then?
If he have, hold on. Yeah. How much do we get?
Yes. So the note that Tom was just reading off was a pool of funds that he was referencing. The question you're asking is relation to the amounts received in the year, and that's shown within rental income.
Sorry, the question I'm asking, you got two big towers there with big lights and that on it, and you get an income for it. So what I'm saying is, shouldn't that be, because you get quite a large income from that, so shouldn't that be individualized on there? Because you're saying it comes through property.
So our statement of financial activities is something governed by charitable regulations. We don't necessarily need to split them down in those amounts, but we could put a note in the future so you could see that.
Well, it just seems like you're trying to hide it because the towers are there and there's money coming in, but no one can't see it.
It's not the largest income that we get.
It is quite a large income, though, isn't it?
It is.
So what I'm asking, I'm just going to say it one more time. If it was me and I'm getting a big income from something like that, I would specifically specify on there.
So as I said, the statement of financial activities is governed by charitable law. We can put a note to break that down in the future for you so you could see the breakdown.
More transparency because the
That's fair
understanding
enough.
of the pool, what you're talking about, it's all right for you to understand that, but people looking in who don't understand about accounts and stuff like that, it doesn't make sense. Like, where's this money? So like you're saying, there's so much. He's never said it's the biggest, but it's a large amount of money which nobody can see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this actual layout is governed by charitable law. But the more detail and transparency you're requesting and asking for, rightly so, can be contained within the notes.
What I find.
And more than that, it wouldn't just be in there. It would come with potentially a full explanation as part of the notes.
Yeah, but people who don't know the towers exist there, they're not going to know, are they? How are they going to? No one's going to ask that question. One minute. Yeah, but no one's going to ask that question because they don't know the towers are there. I know the towers are there, and I know you get an income from it, quite a large income for it, and I think that should be up there, income from towers, a thingy. And when you start saying it's in line with government regulations, you start to sound like the Tories now. You get where I'm coming from? Because you understand where I'm coming from?
Those are the things that the organisation has to flex to, but equally it has to be transparent. I completely agree. And so
there's nothing transparent about that, is it?
The agreement is to take it forward and put it in the notes and make sure that we're doing both things. Both we're satisfying charitable law and we're also satisfying the demands of transparency.
It should have been there in the first place.
Look, it's a fair comment. It's a fair comment.
You're
I take it
forward and what have you, and the reasons given. Gentleman over here stood up and said about it. It seemed like he was just making an excuse why it wasn't there, and the transparency ain't there. You know.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to spend long on this. I want to move on. Basically, we'll do it differently next year. We can send you a note as to what the advertising income was. What we've done is we've taken the format that we already had the previous year and just run that into this year. There's a mixture of reasons for that. We basically lost the whole of our accountancy team, and we've now got a new accountancy team. They both resigned. They weren't made redundant. They both resigned.
Them towers have been up there. How long have them towers been up there? How long have them towers been up there?
How long have the towers been up? Yeah, I can't.
4 or 5 years?
or
Who's
more
never
than
been
that,
on there?
5 or 10 years. Look, I think your point's totally valid, okay? What we've done is we've taken the template that the previous management used and just fitted the numbers into that template. You as the AGM have now come up with it saying you want to do it better and we can do it better. That's fine. It never went, well, we can give you more information.
Want to do it better? I'm saying you've got to be more transparent.
Yeah, that's fine.
The whole
That's
idea
okay.
of the trust, the whole idea of this new shake-up is that everybody knows what's going on. And when you're not telling people that you've got 2 towers there which you're getting an X amount of money from, so when you're saying, oh, that's in line with government strategy, there's something going on there.
Yeah,
so obviously something's been going on, or something is going on, because you're not people here don't know about them towers. Some people here don't know about them towers. You're getting X amount of money for them towers, and it's not on the board.
No,
You mixed it all in. It's not right.
Fine. No, I take your point. I think we can send out a note saying what the income was to the people who attended, and we'll do it differently next year. Sorry for that. Can we go back to where I was? I've got page 30. Oh, good. I don't know. He's getting the clap, not me. Sorry.
Sorry,
Right.
Tom, can I just say one thing? I think that what Luke and the other gentlemen have said is absolutely valid. And can this AGM commit to full transparency going forward in everything to do with the accounts of the Westway Trust?
One normally looks at materiality. Sorry, when you say full transparency, you sort of worry me because you don't want to know about numbers of £50 or £500. Well, yeah. If you're going through £6 million and you want to look at everything, I've already.
And then my man got diplomatic and said, oh yeah, the government law and stuff like that. We wasn't getting technical. He was saying there's a large amount of money which nobody knows about. There needs to be transparency. And it should have been there with the figures, what you've just declared, a whole set of figures which you've declared and told everybody about. And then when it comes to those figures about the large amount of cash, 365,000, which is a lot of money, no one knows about it. And there's no figures up there to indicate that that's where it came from.
Well, look, what I've said is we'll change it for next year. In the last 20 years since I've been in North Kensington, longer than that, I haven't seen Westway Trust do a proper presentation on the finance. It's inevitable that when you do the first presentation, you'll get a bit of flack. That's just life. Thank you. Can I take, if I take Piers' comment, the only area where I was worried was fully transparent. Yes, we'll do it transparent. I don't know what the word, I do know what the word fully means, but it can also be a legally interpreted word, and we will increase the level of transparency. And I was also going to offer that sometime in the year we could do this presentation as a workshop, because I want you to understand what a statement of financial affairs is, which is basically a profit and loss account, and what a balance sheet is, and be able to read this stuff. And I know when I was in my early 20s or mid-teens, I'd pick up a set of accounts, start reading at page 1, and I'd fall asleep by page 5, and there'd be another 30 pages to read. That's not the way to read them. You read them from the balance sheet to the notes. And that's it. Okay, thanks. I think I'm almost finished because I've taken up quite a bit of time. What I was looking at was the funds. Can we get to the funds page? Yeah. Yeah.
The significant income in its various groups, towers,
Yes.
Sainsbury's, etc. The major sources of income. Because I know when I joined as a trustee, it was the first thing I asked.
Yep. No, that's fine. That's fine. We'll improve. There's room for improvement, so we'll improve. Can I just go through these 3 funds very quickly? You've got 759,000 for refurbishing the sports centre, which will cost 1.2, 1.5 million. That's in order for us to get 1.6 million a year in rent. And that's because we're competing against Virgin and people like that. Our development fund, just over 2 million. We're going to be spending 1.3 million on, it's in that ballpark, 1.3 million on Community Street, which is matched by the Mayor's office. So it will be a 2.6 million pound spend on refurbishing all the common areas of the estate. I think that's coming up later, but it's actually going to make the estate look a lot better. And it's one of the things which we can do, which is for every beneficiary. A lot of stuff is for very small groups of beneficiaries. That's not wrong, but anything we do to improve the whole estate, it's good for everybody in North Kensington. All the beneficiaries gain. The Mayor's putting in half the money, which is why it's a significant reason as to why we're doing it. The other areas coming out of that, the development fund, we need to meet various costs if we go to planning on anything like architects' costs, surveyors' costs. We've got 3 projects which are coming up, which are, I've got the name quite wrong, what I called the Civil Rights Centre, Centre for Justice and Equalities. We've got the Ecology Centre that we're looking at, which will be worked on over the next couple of years. Somebody else can give you a better timetable. And we've got one other centre, we've got Bramley's. I've got Bramley's as well, which is just behind us, which will be stripped out by Costangs, but it needs it will cost money before we can rent it or use it. And then there's the stables who are doing their own fundraising, which we put some money into date. But what I'm trying to say is that money, there's a reason for it being there. We've got 3 developments which are going on, and we've got the Community Street stuff as well. The maintenance is what's called the forward maintenance plan, which is things like gas boilers. It's just keeping the estate in a fit state, keeping the buildings upright, covering all health and safety, keeping up to speed with regulations. The insulation regulations and loss of heat through walls have changed, so we've got to upgrade on that. So this one is we've got a very detailed plan on that. That's basically where the money is, what it's allocated to, which is why we're not jumping up and down, spending large amounts of money or giving you a wonderful buffet, because we've allocated it into different headings. We can change our minds on some of it, and at some time you might say you think we should be doing something differently, and we can certainly look at that. I missed that. So, more canopies. Okay, right, fine, yeah. It won't. We'll do more canopies, but it won't be in the full and true transparency, because we won't list canopies in the report, if that's okay with you. This general fund here of 199,000, we tried to keep 3 months' money, 3 months' overheads, that's staff costs, in the bank. We've got to top that up to about 420,000, so a bit will come out of that and go into there. But we basically, the reserves policy, which the Charity Commission asked us to have, we save 3 months' money, which is fairly conservative, but without COVID, we've got a regular stream of rent income. Total assets, 62 million. So the charity is worth 62 million. If it wasn't a charity, if it was a private company, it would be worth about 62 million. I think that's it. Have I got another page or not? That's it. Okay. Hope you understand a bit more. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Schoolmaster Tom. Thank you. Lots of things. Tom has been a real source of education for everyone on his committee throughout the time we've been here. So thank you very much, Tom. Thank you. And your commitment to constantly trying to inform, and we'll take that point absolutely on board about transparency. Your commitment to inform the community about these numbers has been so strong throughout. So thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. We are now going to move on to our second and final resolution, ordinary resolution. This one is, as was touched upon with the question from Piers earlier, this is to reappoint Moore Kingston Smith LLP as Westway Trust's auditors and authorise the trustees to fix their remuneration. So could we have a proposer for that resolution, please? Either a member or a trustee. Open Age as a proposer, and a seconder, please. We've got KCSC. Okay, and now could we have cards raised as high as possible, please, for the vote? 19. Okay, 19. And yeah, just to reiterate for the question earlier from peers about actually changing. So it has been something that has been discussed at board, but obviously with all of the pressures, with everything that's been going on, with a change in executive, a change in financial team, it's been really important to have that continuity and to have an organisation that actually knows the Westway Trust and knows the Westway Trust's accounts and the accounting systems that are used, etc. But we have committed that after next year, we will go into a new tender process for a new organisation to work with us on the audit and the report, which will be for 23-24. Potentially new, because of course, exactly, potentially new, absolutely, 100%. So that's just to reiterate that point. Thank you. So I believe that is the final thing, unless there's any other business we've been formally notified of. But no, there's been no other business that's been sent through to us. So that draws to a close the formal business. So I say thank you very much for the votes and for the discussions and all of the questions and challenges. Thank you very much on all of that. And now we will move forward to a series of updates from myself and from committees over what's been happening in the year 2021. And I believe to begin with, we're going to go into a short film to illustrate some of that. Thank you.
The 2020 financial year was one of significant and unprecedented change and challenge. As we marked our 50th year as a charity for the North Kensington community, we found ourselves at a crossroads. With the publication of a landmark report finding that our charity has been and remains institutionally racist, we set out on rebuilding a charity with the community of North Kensington at our heart. A charity whose future will be shaped by acknowledging from our past mistakes, encouraging community participation, and offering courageous leadership.
The year began in April 2020, just 1 week into the first lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic. Staff had been asked to work from home where possible, and our facilities and property teams worked hard to close down and secure the estate for the foreseeable future. There was a huge sense of uncertainty, which was shared with our tenants across the 23-acre Westway estate. This uncertainty was set to continue throughout the year.
In accounting terms, our recognised income for 2020-2021 increased a small amount compared to the previous year, from 6 million to 6.2 million pounds. But that doesn't tell the whole story. As our tenants dealt with the impacts of the pandemic on their businesses, we saw a substantial increase in bad debt provisions. This unanticipated fall in actual income was a result of rent concessions, rent deferrals, unpaid rent, and the necessary renegotiation of the contract with our largest tenant, Everyone Active. Considering the above and making appropriate provisions, our received income was around £3.6 million, down from just over £5.5 million in 2019-2020.
Total expenditure was 6.8 million, up from 6.1 million in the previous year. This includes staff and payroll costs and the following important community investments: £502,000 of grants awarded, including over £150,000 in direct cash grants to community groups, support for supplementary schools, and almost £260,000 in subsidised rent to our charity tenants on the Westway estate, £77,000 in support of Bay 20, £144,000 on maintaining and improving the property estate, including EPC improvements. 30,000 on maintaining the grounds and gardens of the estate to provide usable spaces for the community.
Taking into account our significantly reduced income, this difficult year has resulted in an operating deficit of £1.2 million for 2020 to 2021.
Building back from this point will take time, but as we begin to emerge from the pandemic, our focus will be on ensuring financial sustainability for the charity in the long term, while continuing to maintain the Westway estate and delivering the most important services to the North Kensington community.
Following the retirement of one of our joint chief executives in March 2020, our second joint chief executive departed in July of the same year. Trustees appointed Mark Lister as our interim chief executive on an interim basis to guide the organisation for a short period in order to allow time for a participatory approach in the subsequent recruitment of a permanent chief executive.
At board level, we welcomed Councillor Marie-Therese Rossi as an RBKC nominated trustee to the board, replacing Councillor Sof McVeigh. Alex Corder joined the board in February 2021 as a member nominated trustee nominated by St Helens Residents Association. Shortly after the end of the year, Jonathan Kelly and Manal Patel joined the board following an open recruitment exercise for new trustees.
We operated with a significantly reduced workforce throughout the year. This was the result of furloughing, redundancies and departures across the organisation. In late 2020, we regrettably had to implement a few redundancies within the organisation as part of a restructure in response to both a new strategic direction and the financial challenges posed by the pandemic. Together with a non-replacement of some staff who departed during the year, this resulted in a reduction of headcount in the organisation from 73 to 61 staff.
We claimed a total of £385,000 from the government's job retention scheme, with up to 70% of staff going on to either full-time or part-time furlough at some point during the year. While the job retention scheme enabled the charity to mitigate in part the losses from reduced revenue, it did also mean that the service provision of the charity was significantly diminished throughout the year.
Our interim chief executive worked with trustees and our executive team to develop short, medium-term strategic principles for the organisation, primarily aimed at guiding the charity through the turbulence of the pandemic. The strategy focused on the following 6 objectives: to be community-centred in all we do, to secure a sustainable and diverse income, to be a stronger voice for the community, to enhance the space and environment, to bring about internal transformation, to provide a clear path from the current crisis.
While dealing with our own unprecedented financial challenges, we also acknowledge the importance of locally owned small businesses to the economy of our community and wanted to do everything within our power to protect our tenants through this difficult time. We established a rent concession panel to assess any requests for support from our tenants.
In making tough decisions on support for our tenants, the panel considered things like the services and benefit that our tenants provide to our community, their previous track record on rent payments, access to grant, funding, support, as well as their ability to trade remotely and online, any other government restrictions and the impacts of decreased footfall on their business, and the measures that have been necessary to keep themselves and their customers safe.
We were able to provide a total of approximately £213,000 in rental concessions or subsidies to our tenants throughout the year, accounting for a drop of approximately 23% of our budgeted rental income for the year. We also spent time developing a number of bespoke business support options for our tenants, including business support from the Portobello Business Centre and a bespoke programme for our tenants from Brunel University called Co-Innovate.
Despite the financial challenges posed by the pandemic, we were able to distribute a total of £150,270.88 in grant funding to 85 community groups and individuals. These grants include Community Small Grants, Rapid Response Fund, Computers for North Kensington, Young Achievers Participatory Grant Making Pilot, Grenfell Response Fund.
As our educational programs are largely externally funded, we are very happy to report that the majority of our learning programs have continued to be delivered throughout the year, including with some new and innovative ways of delivering classes and courses online. For example, in the year to April 2021, we supported 22 local supplementary schools with over 700 students, delivered 2,060 hours of adult learning courses to 184 learners, and continued with our pop-up nursery. Also provided courses for the local travelers community and delivered parenting courses.
In December 2020, the long-anticipated review into institutional racism at Westway Trust was published, with a media and community event in Bay 56. In a momentous moment for the Trust, the review found that the charity was institutionally racist. The legacy of this institutional racism lives within our organisation in terms of the experience and relations of the African Caribbean community and other communities, which has led to a continuing mistrust and suspicion. We must put this right, and working closely with the Independent Community Advisory Group to the review, we committed to implementing every recommendation in the report. The publication of the report came more than 2 years after the review was launched in a joint event hosted by Westway Trust, the Tutu Foundation UK, and the Independent Community Advisory Group to the review. The full report can be viewed at westwayreview.com.
On the 5th of February 2021, Westway Trust marked the 50th anniversary of the charity, formerly North Kensington Amenity Trust, with the launch of an anniversary website and an online live-streamed event hosted by our chair, Toby Laurent-Belson. The website and event can be viewed at westway50.com.
In March 2020, Westway Trust secured 1.3 million in funding from the GLA Good Growth Fund to make significant improvements to the estate through a project called Community Street. Community Street will include improvements to lighting, additional greening, tackling poor air quality, and improving a number of the Trust buildings. Despite unavoidable delays as a result of the pandemic in 2020-2021, the project progressed throughout the year and is due for completion at the end of 2023.
In the time since the conclusion of the reporting period, we have made significant strides forward as we forge a new path as a community-centred charity. Under the leadership of newly appointed CEO, Venu Dupa, we have undertaken a review of what's needed to keep the organisation running smoothly on a day-to-day basis and what's required to transform the charity into a progressive, community-centred organisation. We will be an organisation with fully articulated values based on achieving much-needed outcomes. We've developed a forward-looking horizon plan which sets out our path to supporting happier, healthier and more prosperous communities in North Kensington. You can read our horizon plan and find out more at westway.org/horizon plan.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the team for putting together that short film just to show some of the things that have been taking place this year. And now we're going to go forward to a few updates from myself and also our committees, our People Committee, our Charitable Purpose Committee, and our property committee. We have Marwan, who unfortunately is not here this evening, but he is the chair of our property committee, and he has recorded a short message, or about an 8-minute message, to update on what's been going on in the property committee. But to begin with, we're just going to go through my own view, the chair's view of how things have gone. I find there's this kind of slightly funny thing that we're talking about. We've got a report here in front of us, which is actually about the first year that we came into the organisation, that I came in. I came in at the beginning of 2020, January 2020. But of course, there have been 2 years since then, actually. And I feel it's really important that I actually don't speak so much about that year 2020, where all of that internal work happened, as you've seen with some of the the redundancies that happened, the change of strategy, the impacts of COVID, the change of executive, interim executive, etc. I think it's far more important that I just speak around my view of where we've gotten to this year, where we've gotten to in the last year, 2021. Obviously, it's been a hugely challenging year, another one. And so many of us have experienced huge impact, losses, personal losses. And a lot has come down on our tenants who have faced an existential threat. And it can't really be kind of overstated how big that threat has been to so many tenants. People all over the place have lost their businesses in spite of the government support. Some organisations didn't really get much government support. And it's really important to know then that that existential threat, because of the way the Westway is, because of where the income comes from, because of what the Westway Trust is built on, Westway in turn faced an existential threat. You've heard from Tom, you've seen some of the numbers that were in the short video there. Westway Trust has sustained huge losses in income. It's got a huge debt provision, bad debt provision now. And I'm sure you can all understand that whilst we were going through that, there were very serious concerns about what would happen to Westway Trust. What would happen, for instance, if our largest tenant, Everyone Active, collapsed? This was again a reality. And what would happen if it collapsed? Oh, we would go and look for another one. Well, how many are there? How many other organisations out there do what Everyone Active do? And the enormity of us having to deal with that whilst the organisation is dealing with everything else. It has been massive. And it is, as I say, based on the massiveness of what everybody else around us is facing. So that challenge and threat can be seen in the numbers, and it can be seen in us. It can be seen in the way we've had to come together, and the challenges we've had to go through, and the difficulties that we've had to face up to. But nonetheless, Westway has made progress in the transformation. Obviously, I stand here today as proof of that. Tom stands here, sits here today. Venu sits here as proof of that. There has been progress. So after 3 years of watching the Trust make tokenistic changes or changes designed to placate us, Westway 23 made the decision to make a final demand for real change. This might be recognised by some of you as from last year's AGM, where I went through a presentation of how the Trust had gotten to this point and what members of the community, including myself, Tom, Shireen, Eve and others, put on the line to begin a transformation of this organisation. These were the demands that came out of the Westway 23 campaign. At the time, we were asking for the resignation of the chair, an appointment of a new chair, an end to a corporate executive structure, a new purpose for the organisation, a new all-inclusive membership structure, and an immediate rebalancing of the Board of Trustees to reflect the local community. And then we also had this graphic that I showed last year, which was effectively what we wanted to do, which was turn the trust inside out. We felt that the trust had been led by too many people at board level who had all the finance experience, all the legal experience, all the property experience, all of this professionalism around these things, but very little actual connection to the community. There were people we never saw. They came to a committee once every quarter. You would never see them otherwise. No one could claim that the trust was being run badly financially or in terms of some of its property decisions, but in terms of its response to community demands, community needs, there was seemingly little or certainly not enough for what people needed. And so again, I think we've moved forward now, and I want to just take you through again some of these priorities. These are all things that when I stepped into the role, this is what I presented. This is what I came with. And I want to just present this here to you all today, basically the rest of my presentation, because from my perspective as chair of this organisation, it's important that you know what my priorities have been for the past 2 years and what they will remain for the remaining year. This is what I personally have been working towards and bringing to the trust, and this is what the trustees appointed me to carry out. I put it all in there, and I was open from the beginning about what I wanted to do based on the demands of the campaign of the previous 4 years. And so obviously we wanted to go through to an appointment of a new chair, which took place, an immediate rebalancing of the Board of Trustees, which has taken place, an end to the corporate executive structure, which I think arguably can be said to have taken place given the huge churn in executives that we've had at the organisation and the way that we've actually brought on new executives, especially our new chief executive, through a community participatory process where we had a community panel which actually brought us to the shortlist of candidates. We did things in a way the trust has never done before. A new purpose of community grant giving and investment. We're about to run a grants review, and I'll do a little bit of an update from Eve Wedderburn's committee, the Charitable Purposes Committee, soon. And again, she talks about the way that we've had to rebuild that whole area, and it's now resulting in an entire grants review to look at how the money from Westway Trust is actually spent with and in our community. And finally, a new all-inclusive membership structure that represents community concerns and enables constructive dissent. For me, this is the one that, for me, we haven't touched. We have not gotten round to doing this, and it's a really, really important one. I was really happy to see those organisations, obviously the organisations that are here this evening, but also those who sent their apologies and engaged on that level. There has to be that engagement. Members have not just a moral purpose in Westway Trust, they also have an official purpose. Westway, it relies on its members to vote on certain things, to hold it to account. It took the community to do that. And we sacrificed 4 years of our lives to do that. And it has always been my view, personally, that the members ought to have done more. They ought to have been empowered to do more. They ought to have known to do more. And that I don't blame members for that, because I know the way that the trust leadership had been operating. There were things that for me it didn't do. It was not open enough. In saying the sort of thing that Tom has done this evening, was actually saying, look, this is how you can read our accounts. This is how you can drill into them. This is how you can know more. As I said in my presentation in 2019, the board and the chair is where this change must begin. That is where real and achievable community leadership and change must develop and be implemented. It is where things happen in organisations. You can do what you like on the ground, but strategic leadership happens at board level. It's that simple. And so there is a job for all of us to look around us and see who's running the organisations. Who are the people who are actually the board of trustees who are actually seeing things and doing things? There needs to be a focus on how we are able to restructure and rebuild the organisation to achieve new things. And of course, that's what we've been working so hard on. And removing the barriers between organisation and community. I wanted a trust that recognises the motivation and resilience in our community properly and is in a position to support it fully. It's an ongoing thing that we strive towards. The vision is for a Westway Trust that involves hundreds of local people making decisions themselves. And we do have good examples in this past year of doing that, whether it be bringing on our new CEO in a participatory way, bringing on the community street designers in a participatory way, bringing co-design into the community street work, or bringing even the project manager for community street through with a community panel. All trustees should be capable of chairing, and there should be a number of trustees that can be approached as leaders of the trust, especially on certain issues. This is reflected in the importance of, for instance, Tom standing up and talking about the finances, actually really talking and engaging on them. It's about having somebody come on board to have a focus on environment who has led environmental campaigns locally and deals with these things daily. It's about the committee members who come on board, who bring their local understanding of issues right into the heart of the trust. We wanted to consider all types of payments, financial support and pastoral support for trustees, and instill a strong culture of advice seeking at board level. That was always a principle from day one that I made very clear. That if this organisation is going to have people from its community leading it and taking on those pressures, those people have to be supported wherever possible. And that's been really difficult. That's been a real challenge, not just in Westway Trust, because it's a sector-wide issue. It is a simple fact that the vast majority of charities, let alone large charities in this country, are led by a very narrow section of society. The Charity Commission produced a report around 5 years ago that made this very clear, that the majority of those trustees were of a certain educational background, of a certain ethnic background, of a certain age profile, and had certain limited experiences. And then what would then happen is when they actually went to seek advice, they would often seek advice amongst themselves. That's something that we want to challenge as an organisation. I know that's something we want to challenge as a community. But make no bones about it, it's an enormous thing to challenge. It's not just going up against the sector, it's going up against the Charity Commission, who don't necessarily have the tools as it stands to do what we're doing, to encourage local people who are often on low and precarious incomes to actually come into an organisation like this and dedicate time and dedicate efforts. This is something we see at local schools as well. I was a governor for 8 years at Colville. And again, our schools are dominated by a narrow section of society. And there has long been a debate about whether governors should actually be paid, which would account for something like £3 or £4 billion every year for the time they put in. But these are the debates that we want to have, because these are the things that we talk about all of the time, on the street, on everywhere we are, within our families. And Westway Trust ought to be a good platform to bring those conversations to a bigger stage. Thank you. The executive changes that have taken place, as I've said, have been huge. I have to give a huge thanks and appreciation to Mark Lister, who was here with us for 6 months, who did a remarkable job of coming in and being so supportive and so open to our Board of Trustees. To step in to a Board of Trustees that were dealing with a pandemic, but had come off the back of a 4-year campaign to make change. And he was absolutely the right person at that time to try to hold us through that. Equally, I want to welcome Venu Dupa, who is our new CEO, who's been with us full-time since August, who came through a fantastic process that involved local community members. And that process is now the way that this trust has to do things. I want to thank the members of our executive team, both those who are still with us now, but also those who have departed. Some of whom put in unbelievable amounts of work to keep this organisation going through the pandemic. Those who are completely open with us and honest with us, challenged us as a board, and supported us as a board. We bridged the gap between our chief executive leaders. There was around a 6-month gap between Mark departing and Venu coming on board. And in that time, the executive team had to pull together, with support from trustees, to hold this organisation through that gap. There were things that went well, there were things that went not so well. But we're here. Everything's still standing, and we can move forward. We've established a new way, as I say, for the community and board to choose our leadership. And that is the way the trust must be from now on. Whether it's myself going through a community panel process, as I did in 2019, or it's our CEO going through a similar process. We had comments from the people who went through that process, and they were all resounding that, yeah, it was long. They went through, 4 or 5 interviews. Things that sometimes they'd never been through, they'd never experienced, they'd never seen that in an organisation before. But they were all absolutely committed to it and resounding in their praise for the way they do it. It set the mark from day one. And again, that's why I feel confident that whether I'm here for another term or not, and I will make that decision with family, with friends, with colleagues in the community, but regardless of whether I do, I'm so confident that the next person who takes on this role as chair will be the right person. They'll have been through a process of understanding where they'll know what this is about. And the community will have its chance to define and determine who that person is and what their outlook for the next 3 years is, as it should be. Board changes. We've heard that we did say goodbye to one trustee, Sof McVeigh, and of course we welcomed another, Alex Corder. Sof was one of those trustees who were instrumental in the change that took place at the trust, as all of the board members who sat on the board at that time were. But I have to say a special thanks to a board member who left, actually, strictly speaking, outside of the report time, and that is Angela from KCSC. I couldn't really be here if it weren't for Angela, because of the support that she's given me as vice chair through a ridiculously challenging time that nobody could foresee. And so my sincere thanks to you, and all of our thanks on the board, and I know through executive and staff. Thank you to all of the efforts that you put in to bring about this change. Thank you. We've welcomed new trustees, as I've heard. We've welcomed Alex on board from the St Helens Association. And again, strictly speaking, outside of the report time frame, we also welcome on Jonathan and Minal, who have joined us through an open recruitment process, who bring incredible experience around both environmental campaigning and holding the council to account on environment, and also incredible experience around youth work and carnival and music and sports organisations for youth in the surrounding areas of North Kensington, such as Stonebridge Estate and Brent. We also welcomed new committee members. Our committees are a space where so much work goes on, so much happens in the committees. And it's one of those spaces that this community has to get into. It has to be involved. We have up to 12 trustees, but we also have co-opted committee members. Our Charitable Purpose Committee is probably the best example of that, as it has 4 or 5 co-optees who bring an immense amount of knowledge into that committee to support the trustees in making decisions. But we've also welcomed new members onto our property committee who have brought, again, a huge wealth of experience from not just property side, but also the realities of living in North Kensington. We've had up to now monthly board and committee meetings. At the beginning of 2020, we were meeting on a weekly basis to go through what was happening with the pandemic and deal with that business. But not long after, we went to monthly meetings. Now, typically in an organisation like this, you have quarterly meetings. So we were doing so much more on a weekly, or often weekly basis in terms of trying to engage and transform this organisation. I'm thankful to say that with Venu's leadership, we've now moved to meetings once every 2 months as we attempt to move back to a more normal way of working with quarterly meetings. But the caveat to that being that this organisation always has to be more engaged with its trustees from here on in. We cannot get to a position where trustees are just coming in here once every quarter to make decisions and then see you later. That's not going to work. That can't continue. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it from me. As I've said, the change has been enormous. This is going to be my last year of my term. So I'm sure we'll be beginning to build a process to find a new chair some way halfway through this year in order that we can make that decision with the community by the end of the year. Whether I put myself forward for that, as I say, will be my decision, depending on, discussions with colleagues, with family, with friends, with people in the community. But I have real faith and confidence that whoever continues to lead this organisation, both as chair but also as other trustees, will do a fantastic job and will continue to take this organisation in the right direction. Might not always get things right, might not always do things quick enough or in exactly the right way, but I'm confident that the direction now is what it needs to be for this organisation and for this community. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Yeah. Oh. Yes, Piers.
May I take slight issue with your disappointment in the members? Because as far as I know, since I've been representing Silchester here, in the 6 or 7 years, there's been a solid core of 20 members who've come every time. Those members have on occasion shown that they have some power by abstaining on certain votes. There have been 3 members on the Board of Trustees the entire time that that's been available. I believe there's one vacancy available at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
And there were 3 membership trustees who were very important in the process that removed the previous board. Of course, Angela, we've already mentioned, but there were also 2 others. So I would take issue with the fact that the members have been sheeple, sitting here listening to the previous regimes telling us what's good for us.
Yep, thank you, Piers. Absolutely, and I accept your view and your opinion, and you taking issue with that. No, that's my view. That's my opinion. I completely accept that there have been, I suppose, a hardcore group of members who took their role a lot more seriously, took their role the way and dealt with their role the way that the rest of the, if the rest of the membership had taken it in the same way, perhaps things would have gone in a different way. So I completely accept that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and also we've had conversations for the last 6 years. I've mentioned the Regeneration Trust, which appeared to be a shill organisation for Rockfield and Mellon. I think they have been removed. I noticed that Catalyst Housing were on the list of people who apologise for not being here. Catalyst Housing, I don't think represent the interests of very many people in this room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Catalyst Housing. There's the things that they've done down in Warnington are just, just wrong and reprehensible. And there are things. I think we've had discussion at board level on a number of occasions about that and about how the trust can engage. Again, one of the things that we've worked on hard with the trust, and I know that you're aware of this with the work that you do around Silchester, is how does the trust support local campaigns and support local community groups to defend its spaces and to engage larger organisations. Power speaks to power, and Westway Trust holds a certain amount of power. And so we need to be a more effective voice and a platform to bring those conversations to some of those big players, such as Catalyst Housing. Well, so we attempted to engage with them at this stage, but they just basically sat in the power of their planning applications. So they had that planning consent to do the phases that they needed to do or wanted to do, and they did it, and they went ahead and cut those trees. But there are more planning applications to come for the next phases, and so that's the space where they can still be challenged. So I believe that there are still spaces where the trust can challenge something like Catalyst and can also bring something like a community campaign like Warnington Trees into those conversations and all of those residents into those conversations to challenge them on the next stage of their applications, and also look at what reparations would look like for the trees that they've lost. Because the fact is all of those hundreds of trees are having a bad effect on people's lungs.
Challenge them that way, not just on the tree side. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so more like kind of the strategic stuff, as you're saying, about affordable housing, all of the stuff that goes around regenerations, where you end up with no social housing and all of these things. Yes, I think that we can, but I think it's something where the Westway Trust has to become a space that can have those conversations and have them authentically and bring people to the table to actually have them from the community. Yes.
I hear they're gonna.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I didn't catch.
The planning application is in. It was submitted on the 17th of December. It's extended until, or not extended, they've taken 3 extra weeks. Very often people do a Christmas application to slip things under. They're going to this Friday. It's PT 02078, but PP, certainly worth looking at. There have been objections. The Goulburn Forum has submitted its comment. Whom should I share that with in Westway to see how the Goulburn Forum, which is the community organization, I've done it. It went in yesterday. I sent it to some people. Who should I send it to tonight?
To our CEO, Venu Dupa.
And that email is easy to find.
Yeah.
Okay, we have submitted our comments, concerns, objections, as we did in 2009.
Great.
And
Tina? Yeah.
I don't need to speak now.
About the planning.
Yes, just really to say that Goulburn Forum is a very vital charitable, no, it's not a charity, but it's an organisation based in and around about the Goulburn ward. And now Roger's spoken. Roger is our chair. And I was going to say a lot that Roger just said about the trees, but there are many other issues to do with planning applications, towers going up and whatever. So if anyone is interested, let me know, and it would be really good to have some more members in the Goulburn Forum. Thanks.
Brilliant, thank you. So yeah, I think engage with Venu on this, because it's important, because we have been supporting the Trellick group and everything that's going on there with the huge developments that they're proposing there, and sticking a huge block in front of Trellick just to cut up the space. And it's a good example of how the trust needs to engage with those kinds of grassroots campaigns and work with them, provide equipment like this for public meetings, or any other kind of support, our backing in different ways. So bringing, I think, Goulburn Forum to those conversations as well would be really, really important. Thank you. Yeah, at the back.
The trust looks to take back the space where the former Citizen Advice Bureau was, and has been handed to the prep school, and where they have the ability to lease it to Pret a Manger. I would put a request to everyone here to boycott Pret a Manger. I was petitioning outside there with I was petitioning outside Pret a Manger when before they moved in, before I realised I'd probably die of air pollution before I got anywhere, so I gave up on that. But please advocate for that. I just see the prep as a form of segregation, along with the other prep schools. I think we need to look at who's attending those schools, and that, on a social level, how that could be acceptable, under the trust in Ladbroke Grove, because I don't know the demographic of the children going there, but that's, for me, that's unacceptable. So that's coming just as a resident demand to the trust. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are engaging with the council on the land that they actually look after. So the land they administer are the shops on Bramley Road, the hub on Moulton Road, which is just behind Sainsbury's, and also a section which also takes in the Pepper Pot Club as well, and what used to be the Westway Information Centre. As part of the independent review into institutional racism, one of the recommendations was that both the Westway Trust and RBKC were clear on the land ownership, about who owns what. I think that's been a source of confusion forever about who owns what, and and we're coming up to things, I know, where with conversations around the Ecology Centre, for instance, and the space around Hope Gardens, where you've got a bizarre little triangle that belongs to someone else, doesn't belong to Westway Trust, doesn't belong to RBKC. There are these strange things. There's another space up by the village, which is just outside the toilets, which literally is just a pathway, which isn't the responsibility of the trust or anyone else. It's just there are these anomalies that have to be sorted out. And one of them is definitely that space that is on Ladbroke Grove, which is obviously a prime space for this community. So we are engaging on that. we are going to be engaging RBKC on it in terms of if this is community land, where is the income going to, whether it's from the Bramley Road shops or whether it's from the Pret-a-Manger. So believe me, trust me, we are engaging. We are going to take those conversations forward. So thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, just here. Thank you. Yeah, the community college. I was told that council were taking over.
So I believe the council is engaged with an independent CIC, which is the Maxilla City CIC, and they have been running consultation events with the community to establish what is going to be in there. I believe it's supposed to be partly social and elderly care, but also other things. Is there someone? Yep. Could Moira, I believe, is part of that CIC, and after this, so we've slipped into a Q&A session here, but we're going to go to Marwan because he's been waiting. So, but first, yeah, Moira could give us. Should we go into the Q&A for? And okay, so we'll have that in the Q&A. But now, yeah, sorry for that diversion.
Good evening and welcome to this AGM of Westway Trust. I am Councillor Marwan Al-Naji, Trustee and Chair of Westway Trust Property in Place Committee, referred to later as PPC. I am sorry I can't be with you tonight due to a previously scheduled full council meeting. I would like to give you a short overview on the achievement and challenges of the committee and the property department in the past year. Without a doubt, the COVID-19 pandemic has presented enormous challenges to Westway Trust on several fronts. This ranged from securing and maintaining safety and security on the estate throughout the lockdown period to protecting staff with their working environment and supporting our tenants to go through this period of difficulties. The PPC was required to act swiftly and responsibly. This was done in a climate where the property department was under capacity and facing internal challenges. So I'm grateful for all their cooperative and effort to support our work throughout the year. Supporting our tenants through this difficult period has been a priority for the PPC. Understanding that our community thrives when our local-owned small businesses thrive. We wanted to do all that we could to ensure our tenants could emerge from this pandemic impact. The PPC oversaw an independent rents concession panel, which assessed requests for rent concessions and deferrals for our tenants who were struggling the most. In making these difficult decisions, the panel met with tenants to understand their needs and challenges and work through these different options. We were able to provide a total sum of approximately 660,000 in rental concessions or subsidies to our tenants throughout the year, accounting for almost an approximate 28% of our budget rental income for the year. We also provided bespoke business support options to our tenants, including a collaborative project with Brunel University Business School and a tailored support plan from the Portobello Business Center. This initiative will continue in the foreseeable future, working very closely with our stakeholders and tenants in identifying further needs as we come out of this pandemic. While recovery from this financial position will take time, we are confident as we begin to emerge from the pandemic that the right forward plans are in place to recover over the next 3 years. We are heartened to see that our tenants have largely displayed the resilience in the face of COVID. It's nice to see tenants coming back into the arcade, the jewel of this whole estate, and we hope that the markets will also start to pick up as we head into the spring of 2022. It was sad to see recently one of our long-standing tenants and a major feature of our community, New Line, and their business. However, we are pleased to welcome our new tenant lords who are committed to add value to our business portfolio and communities. In response to the pandemic, our largest tenant and operator of our sports facilities, Everyone Active, required significant support to ensure it could continue to be viable after the pandemic. We know how important providing supports and recreation services are to our community. This required a renegotiation of our contract and substantial rent reduction in the short term, with a recoverable arrangement being put in place over the long term. On a positive note, having secured significant funding from the GLA's Good Growth Fund for the 2.6 million Westway Community Street project, it was a priority of the PPC to ensure this exciting project could continue despite the challenges of the pandemic. Fortunately, Westway Trust's financial contribution to the project was able to ring-fence, and the project proceeded despite unavoidable delays at the beginning of the pandemic. And in this context, we would like to thank the local design team, Locadero, for their co-design work, and we are now working with the architects, DKCM, to realize the community ambition in the design for this project. I would like to thank Locadero and DKCM for remaining committed to true co-design principle in the development of these exciting plans. The community streets is anticipated for completion in the next 18 months. Perhaps many of you heard about the Imperial College underpass that has been proposed as a link between Hammersmith and Fulham and the Royal Borough of Kensington, Chelsea, which would emerge at 301 Latimer Road. This is a complex project in nature, having many different stakeholders, such as Imperial College, National Rail, TfL, residents, and the Westway Trust. This is being managed by Imperial College project team. And unfortunately, discussion has to be paused temporarily due to the pandemic. Now, the project will soon be set up and be running again. However, we did manage to progress our engagement in the Westway, in the West London community riding stables, and are pleased that they are progressing with their plans for the riding arena and replacement of the stables. We hope this will be a good example of how the community has taken the lead. In building capacity, I would like to extend my thanks to our volunteers, co-optees on the PPC who help steward the committee, Jamila Bolton-Gordon and Tom Myers, who make tremendous contribution to the committee, and their time and commitment is greatly valued. We will be increasing our capacity of expertise on the PPC in the year ahead. Finally, I would like to extend my great thanks to Teresa Schonibert, who resigned from her role as Head of Property and Estates in September last year after 14 years at the Trust. It's hard to understand the enormous contribution Teresa has made to the Trust during her time with us. I would like to take this opportunity to thank her for her commitment to Westway Trust and wish her every success and prosperity in her future adventure. With the departure of Teresa, this has, of course, meant a huge additional responsibility fell on the remainder of the property team during this very difficult COVID period and the ongoing transitional time at the Trust. I'm happy to say that Teresa has built a resilient team who managed in a way behind the scenes that has not caused too much difficulties for the Trust as a whole, but like a swan swimming on a lake. The fast, non-stop pace of action below the water line continues unnoticed, and this is what the property team has been doing over the last 18 months. With Venu, our new chief executive, we managed that in the short term, the estate will be managed in safe hands to be able to continue its work with a new head of property and estates once in place. Again, I'm sorry I could not be with you at this AGM. I thank you so much to everyone who made the time to attend this evening. Please feel free to write to me with any further comments. Thank you and have a lovely evening. All my best.
Okay, thank you very much to Marwan for that report from PPC. So we'll have a couple more committee updates. Firstly, the Charitable Purposes Committee. Unfortunately, Eve, who is the chair of that committee, cannot be with us this evening as she is isolating. But she has written a report which I'm going to read out. The Charitable Purposes Committee, or CPC, is a relatively new committee at Westway. It was originally created by previous trustees who started the work of change at the trust as the community were pushing from the outside for change. Before the Charitable Purposes Committee was created, there was no specific place in the board that asked for trustees and others to think in a focused way about the charitable purposes of the trust. The challenge that the CPC has is to take account of all the trust's activities with our core charitable purposes in mind, to improve the economic, social and environmental well-being of the people of North Kensington. However, the committee was set up long after the establishment of the trust, and so we have, in these first years of CPC, been working just to understand the extent of the trust's activities and how they relate to our charitable purposes. We have done so with the support of a number of local people who have come to sit on the CPC as co-optees. Currently, our co-optees are Muna Adams, Corin Malcolm, Monica Press, Cynthia Dyes, and Christian Tillery. Between them, our co-optees bring a detailed knowledge of the history of Westway. They bring huge connections to and understanding of North Kensington from a range of perspectives. And they bring significant experience in the charitable sector. Their insight and knowledge has been absolutely key to getting the CPC into a position where we are fully in command of our brief. We are now confident that we are taking the right reports from the right officers of the Trust and have a greater understanding what levers are available within and throughout the Westway to be able to make the positive impact that everyone, staff, trustees and community wants to see. Obvious items for the CPC agenda include the Trust's grant-making and educational activities. And I'm pleased to report that the committee has, for the first time, managed to take reports from the full range of the Westway's charitable activities this year. In order to do this, we took the decision to create a dedicated working group for the environment and recruited a new trustee to lead this group. The environmental working group will be able to work in a focused way on the environmental challenges facing the Trust, which is a task too big to be held as a single agenda item for the CPC. Elsewhere, CPC looks forward to seeing how the collaboration between our new CEO and our highly successful learning team will support and develop our supplementary schools network, our adult learning service, and our parenting support network, all of which CPC oversees. CPC has also this year worked to oversee some aspects of our partnership with EA, Everyone Active, to ensure that EA's sports bursaries are inclusive and relevant to our community. And CPC worked very hard to maintain some grant making despite the huge financial impact of COVID-19. Our grant making through this last year has tried to stay flexible and reactive to the challenges faced by the community during COVID-19, while also trying to maintain our commitment to work in community-led and participatory ways. We have focused on light touch applications and worked to include a wider range of people in decision-making and review processes. We have also curated a network of expert grant writers to support organisations in attracting funding, in order that the artists, educators and innovators that come to us for support can stay focused on delivering their projects. We have made funds available to support local people mitigating the financial impact of the pandemic and continue working to balance the need for proper governance and scrutiny with the need for quick decisions for local people. As the pandemic eases, we will move out of reactive mode and start working with staff to identify what kinds of information we need to ensure that the future of grant making at Westway is fit for whatever glorious purposes our community can envision. CPC has also commissioned a review of grant making in order that we can build a coherent grant programme that amplifies the brilliant work done by local people to enhance the social, economic and environmental well-being of our area. Finally, this year, CPC has continued to consider how and in what ways the legacy of the groundbreaking Tutu review into institutional racism can be incorporated into our thinking and practices. CPC would like to thank the Community Advisory Group, the CAG, for their hours of input into this work and look forward to further collaboration and improvements in our work going forward. We were very pleased to be able to place some funding decisions in the hands of those leading this work in a model of partnership that the committee is keen to develop. However, in addition to the work of scrutiny on these aspects of the Trust's activities, our committee works to think carefully with the board about how keeping our role as a charity, whose purpose it is to improve the well-being of our community, at the forefront of all the work that is done by Westway. Other committees oversee Westway activities such as our role as a landlord with commercial tenants, our work as an employer with serious opportunities to offer local people, our position as a holder of green spaces. However, at the core of all of these activities is the central purpose of the Trust to improve the social, economic and environmental well-being of North Kensington. The role of CPC is to keep the board focused on these purposes, not only in how we make grants or what educational activities we might do, but also in how we manage our property, how we do our appointments, how we manage our land. The move toward community centering through our procurement, recruitment and allocations processes are moves that are entirely supported by and reflective of the participatory direction of CPC's approach to charitable activities at the Trust. Thank you. Thank you to Eve for that update on the vital work of what is still a relatively new committee, but is a fantastic committee that's got incredible co-optees, and it really has held as an example of how we wish committees to operate in the Trust, of actually engaging with local community and really being strong on their principles. So finally, we're going to go to the People Committee update. So the People Committee is a really new committee. Firstly, I want to thank Shireen, who was the inaugural chair of the committee, brought it into existence, and has done so much to shape the committee up to now. It's a committee that received a staff survey in the middle of a COVID pandemic and the middle of a huge transformation at the organisation, that delivered to us clear messages of the strain and stress that the organisation was under in dealing with everything that was going on, the transformation, the change in leadership, the change in executive, the change in structure, as well as the impacts of COVID. We've had a focus on care and support where we can. We've brought in different types of therapies and different things that people can rely on to ensure that they can continue working to the best of their abilities. And that's just been one of the things I think that for me personally has been probably arguably the most astounding thing through the whole, not just the COVID, but also the transformation, is the impact and the pressure that it actually puts on so many individuals. And also the report, of course. A review into institutional racism. It was certainly groundbreaking when it started. We've seen, because of COVID, the result that so many more organizations are doing these types of reviews and these types of reports. But the impact on the organizations themselves and the communities around them, I feel, is sometimes lost in these reports, in terms of actually taking people through processes of anti-racism, equalities, diversity, reparations, what institutional racism is, how it plays out. I feel there's a lot of work to be done. I don't feel we as an organization or we as a community or we as a society have yet fully grasped how these things actually go and the impacts that they have on our daily lives. We've had an enormous response to COVID, of course, that's changed the way that people are working within the organization in terms of home working and in terms of their own feelings of being in the space and in offices, and obviously coming back into offices that have maybe not been, repainted or anything like that for years. We've had obviously a huge amount of furloughing, as the report said, the little video said. Around 70% of staff have been through a furlough of one type or another, which has obviously then had a massive impact in reducing the Trust's ability to carry out its services. Our learning team has been an incredible, incredible achievement through this period. Probably like no other section of the organization, it was able to move online remarkably quickly and effectively and continue its work with the learners, with the community, with all of the people who rely on their ESOL classes and all of the things that help them to carry on in their lives. I want to make a big thank you to the learning team in particular, and Sakina, who has been leading that particular section, because it was a remarkable job that they did in such short time to take everything online and keep everything going. Thank you. Our volunteers, of course, we have a number of volunteers who support the gardening team and other spaces. And volunteering is obviously something that the Trust relies on in different ways. So massive thanks again to all of the volunteers and everybody who's actually engaged with the Trust in any voluntary capacity that's helped the Trust get through this period. Our staff in 2021 have done a remarkable job of keeping things together against huge odds, as so many have been against huge odds. But I want to give an enormous thank you, particularly to our staff team, who have done so much to support both internally and support trustees to do our roles and carry out our roles. The staff who have actually really supported the transformation, but have also been honest about the pressures they are under. And also trustees in 2021. I want to give again a huge thanks to the trustees, those who are still here and also those who have departed this year. They have made an enormous impact on this organisation, and I hope they've shown what this organisation now needs to continue with. That when they step down, other members of the community now will step into those spaces. Other members of the community will step up into the position I currently hold and will carry this organisation forward. It's up for this community now to do that. So that's it from the People Committee. It's an important committee that is going to really see through a lot of the day-to-day changes and transformation of the organisation, as because it deals with things like HR and remuneration and all these sorts of things, the day-to-day running of things. But as I said, because of what this organisation has had to deal with, it also is right at the centre of people, caring, support. What is it that we do to enable the people to make things happen? So I'm looking forward to continuing the People Committee. Again, a huge thanks to Shireen for starting it off, a brand new committee out of nothing, and looking forward to taking it forward. Thank you very much. And so we move here now into the facilitated Q&A session. That's going to be facilitated by Venu. We'll come back to the questions that we've had so far, and of course open the floor for further questions. Over to you, Venu.
Thanks, Toby, and welcome everybody. It's my chance to just say how nice it is to see many of you here that I've engaged with over the past 6 months. And also thanks to everyone who's joining through live stream. And when the microphone is put in front of you, please use it, because otherwise the people who are joining on the streaming can't actually hear. And I think we've got over 100 people joining on streaming. I want to thank you for the warm welcome to the area. I'm really enjoying getting to know the community here. And I also want to thank the trustees and co-optees, each one of them, who've done so much over the past year just to ensure the trust has been able to function. And they've really started an important process of change. Every day when I come to work, I feel very driven, because I feel it's an absolute privilege to play a part in making a difference to this community. It's what motivates me and my colleagues at the Trust. We know there's a long way to go, and we know there's a long way to go to regain trust, but I hope you'll find me honest and straightforward when you meet with me, and especially when we come together today to be accountable to you. For those of you whom I have met and spent time with, I hope you've experienced someone who listens and wants to take action. However, we also know that we can't please everybody, so we do have to take some difficult decisions and offer courageous leadership. For those of you who I'm yet to meet, who are actually quite few in this room, I'm pleased to say, my door's open to you. So please come and engage with me. So this is the time in the meeting when you can raise questions about the year ending or the present. And I would encourage those of you who have questions about the year ending to ask them first. And then we can move a bit more into the present and look to the future. We've probably got about an hour, and then we've got time for informal networking. So I'm going to facilitate the first part of this and ask colleagues to contribute as necessary. But also, as Moira's just volunteered, you know, we can also be a broker here, because you hold knowledge, obviously, about the community around you. So if someone raises a question and you have information to give, please offer that, please share. Any questions that we can't answer in as much detail, we're going to capture those questions and we'll take them away, and we'll make sure we circulate that to everyone who's attended here today. So I think we've got Osama with a microphone, and he'll hold it just to make sure that you know, we keep germs to a minimum, but also that the live streaming happens. So thank you for that. So Moira, would you like to kick us off with, it was the Maxilla City CIC?
Yes, thank you. Before I answer the question, I'd just like to extend a thanks to, I know Toby, you said it's been a really difficult year and you painted somewhat a little bit of a gloomy picture, which is not surprising, but I think for us, we've already started to see the change. So, you know, I think it's important that we thank you for that, and to thank Venu for being an absolute breath of fresh air and transparency, given the history, of the Westway Trust. I'm a director of Maxilla City CIC, which I don't want to go through the long history of the organisation. I used to teach there when it was Notting Dale Training Centre, and then following the fire, young people occupied the building, and it was known as Latimer City. The council then shut it down. It was quite acrimonious, and it went out to the community for what the council called co-design. A number of us actually applied to actually be part of that, and I'm one of those. We formed a CIC just when lockdown happened. So like you, Toby, we've been working in the background quite a lot. It's a youth-led, and the idea when we recruited, when the people were appointed, was that 3/4 of the directors would be under 25, and we've managed to achieve that. We had to do a lot of governance stuff because we couldn't do anything else because of COVID. And again, I'd like to thank Westway, because what we did as soon as the 24th of June arrived, the Freedom Day, or whatever they called it, we had an event for the community, which we called Activating Our Spaces. Because we know there are so many empty spaces in this community, and our community needs spaces for a whole range of things. And Westway Trust was very helpful. It was held in the Westway. In terms of actually the future, what we want to do is actually work with local organisations, because there is such a paucity of space. We don't want to duplicate any services, so we will continue to engage with local organisations and try and actually accommodate them within that space. It's going to be shared with adult social care, just so that people know, because that's what it was ring-fenced for. But we have quite a huge space. We have a 17, top and bottom. At the moment, what we've been doing is talking to property and architects and contractors and setting red lines in terms of what we want to see for the building going forward. But I'm happy to answer any other questions afterwards.
Moira, maybe you can just tell us how people can engage with you if they'd like to.
We have a website, and other than that, you can get in contact. Email us on hello@maxillacity.com.
Okay, so hello@maxillacity.com. Thank you, Moira. Okay, would anyone? Yes. Look, lots of hands are going up. Maybe I'll take someone who hasn't spoken first. Deo at the back there. Nice to see you here.
Hello, hi. One of those people that was involved in years, like so many people here, but specifically in Westway 23. And I also set up RAP 23 alongside Tom Fitch, which was the first kind of big conversation about air pollution in the Westway area because of the Westway Trust. Okay, I would like to bring something up that I would like, I suppose, to be recognised, that during lockdowns between, and this is my observation, okay, between KCSC removing funding from Cash is community accountancy self-help in North Kensington, and alongside a huge investment of time and effort over years, but especially in moving some of the trustees that are sitting in trustee positions into being trustees at Westway Trust, and then a huge amount of more work in also the huge transformation that has been going on for a while. And this has all resulted in Cash going out of basically, it's no longer, I think Cash is still around for a little bit longer, but, Cash is gone. This is a huge blow to our community. Cash has been major. I think it's over 30 years that it's been working and doing service to this area. I know that since the fire, I mean, I don't know if it's hundreds of CICs, of social enterprises, of charities, and lots of people have gone to cash for help. So I would like to ask the Westway Trust if this can be a conversation where, when you're having conversations about campaigning, I actually feel quite nervous about doing any campaigns if I don't know that cash is there to kind of support me in knowing how to move through something that is not a part of my competency. I'm not a professional accountant, so I would like to ask the Trust, because I personally did try, but I'm one person, and I know other people have tried. So I would like there to be an ongoing conversation with the Trust, because I feel like the Trust has also benefited from cash, as we have all benefited from a huge invisible investment that is putting it out of business and that we no longer have at our fingertips. And I really think that's a very important conversation to have with the Trust support.
Thanks, Deo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deo. And I think it's really interesting when an obvious gap appears, and that is something that the Trust can draw attention to and also amplify the voices. So if we know it's a gap, if we know it needs speaking about, yes, we can do that. I want to come back to Emmanuel, because you raised your hand and then you put it down, but did you have another question? Oh.
I just wanted to reiterate what Moira said earlier, that you are and have been a breath of fresh air.
Thank you.
Recently, but I wanted to go back to the institutional racism situation, and what is actively being done to engage the hard-to-reach youth within our community. I know I've been having conversations with yourself and Toby, and but it's hardly ever mentioned about the youngsters, like hard-to-reach youngsters who are hanging out on the street corners and the violence within the community. I've been actively working and disarming youths and stuff like that, but the space, to have a safe space is still wanting. I've been asking for about a year now. I part-time use different spaces, as Osama knows, and to do job fairs and stuff like that. What would the future look like with giving some sort of space and help for the situation what we're dealing with, because it's becoming where I'm doing work from my house, from my home, to continue the work what I'm doing, because I won't let nothing stop me doing the needed work, and the engagement with the elders, the seniors, and the intergenerational gap, because a lot of the pensioners are frightened of the youngsters today, walking down the street, engaging the youngsters with the pensioners. I need support for that, but I'm not going to keep, but I need some sort of engagement from Westway Trust. I've been asking for a long time. I've just stopped asking now and just continue doing what I'm doing, but there needs to be something to be looking at that.
I would say that in the time I've been at the Trust, with all the organisations I've met, there are probably a few things that come up almost every time I have a conversation, and that's space. One of them is space. We're always going to have a pressure on space. So we need to relook at our asset management and the balance of space that can be shared with the community, and introduce perhaps different rates. And we need the tools to do that. So at the minute, we're building those tools, and it will allow us to take a much more comprehensive look at the balance. Every day is a balance, every day. But I mean, people in this room who I've conversed with, you'll all tell me space. If it's not physical space, it's space on the football pitches, it's space for exhibitions, space for rehearsals. We are committed to bringing more space into community use. That's all I can say for the moment. Every day's a balance, but we're working on the right balance and the right tools for the balance. Yes, please. Yes, the lady there in the maroon. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much. I just want to, again, to what the guy at the front has said, I really agree because being a mom myself, have seen so many changes around my area, being brought up in this area. I don't see kind of a lot of youth going on. And also I see many moms from where I live, the state where I live is in a state. I'm seeing drug dealers, I'm seeing bike being robbed, I'm being oldly, honestly. I feel myself going and knocking to the oldie just to see are they okay. And honestly, it's been sorry, just seeing it every morning. And I'm having, honestly, my young kids now, I don't want them to go into this generation of, mom, what is this happening? And I'm telling them, being frightened, even letting my children come out, I'm scared, to be honest. And I don't see a lot of kind of youths going, even like now, the Moroccan community having now the curves coming down to an end, where again, I've seen moms being there for getting even English not speaking the first language. They don't know where to go now. We don't have anything for Moroccan community. And I really, really want something for the Moroccan community from housing advice. So no speaking English, from letters being read, like getting mom sometimes. I get the pressure, please help me, but how much could you help? Again, having no support, being on your own to help hundred of moms. I don't speak English. Please could you translate this for me? Or even, they need help, but there's nowhere to help. We've got one place is the Hassania. Again, we get a bad result of that because again, they don't get that support they want. And if you ask many Moroccans, I'm ashamed to say go there because again, they don't get that help they need. So again, I get mums. Where shall I go? There's no citizen advice bureau. Again, it's been shut.
That's another gap. So I hear for that gap.
Honestly, and I don't want it to be honest, to continue. I want something to be done. Same with the curve now, it's coming to an end. We've got moms, sewing classes are going, Arabic classes are going, taekwondos are going, kids where they used to communicate, youth clubs. We used to go there, taekwondo. Now it's all coming to an end. So when this end's gonna come, we're gonna end ourselves as well, as being as mom, as parents, wherever it goes, we're gonna have nothing. And honestly, I don't want that to happen, especially having my young kids.
So thank you for sharing, and that's another gap. Before there are some questions that have come in from members which we're obliged to answer because they've come in online in advance. So I'm going to look at those first, share them with you, and then I'll come back to the room. So how can Westway Trust contribute to the reduction of crime, drugs, and antisocial behaviour? From Baraka Community Association. So, yeah. It's an interesting one, this. So the Westway, if I just want to give you a little bit of a flavour of what we're trying to do at the moment. So we're trying to run a number of processes in the Westway Trust. The first is we're trying to do continuous improvement. So this is in small processes, day-to-day processes, and that will include engaging with many of you. The second process, that is a twin-track process, is we're trying to identify which items that do we need to change that will really lead to transformation. And we'll share those with you before you go. But the third thing is, how can we create a situation where we can do more work and put more resource into these sorts of activities? So we've had to look at diversifying our funding and how we might get more trusts and foundations income, but under umbrellas so that money can come directly to the community. And we're building the right tools to do that. And we've built that into our budget so that we can increase the amount going forward into these kinds of smaller projects. I mean, I'm sorry that Emmanuel isn't here to hear this, but into these kind of projects that can work with people on, you are, into these kind of projects that can help people who are on the street. One of the things that is driving us is early action, one of the principles that drives our community participation. Because the community often has the solutions. The community, those closest to the ground, can often do best, and they often have the solutions to present, but they're often not given the resources or the voice. And early action is a principle which basically says, stop the things happening in the first place, put resource into the preventative measures, and as preventative, as near the cause as possible. Because if you don't put resource into addressing the causes, you end up mopping up the issues later down the line. And that is more costly for everyone and more disheartening for everyone. Okay, can we move to the next question? What is the process with reviewing the use of the full-size football pitch to ensure that the facility is used by local people as it was intended when built? So I guess I'm not here to answer the detail of the Everyone Active review process, but what Chris and I have both suggested to Everyone Active, well, it's two things. The first is that we know that it's the largest size football pitch that has the most pressure on it. So we've suggested to them that if they need extra resource to bring forward that bit of the review first, then we're prepared to help with that. And then the second thing that we've had a commitment for from Everyone Active is to hold their own community forum, so that on a regular basis the community can ask them questions, because Chris had to come via my office in order to get any answers. And, you know, Everyone Active have also been under pressure. But hopefully this is again an example of the Westway Trust being a broker. Do we have any more questions? How does the Westway Trust support the Moroccan community? And that plays to your question as well. What I would say is that all our services, everything we offer is open to every community. But we know that it's harder for some communities to access those resources or even know about them. So what we need to do is we have to really open the channels of communication, because we don't want to start funding things upon national lines. What we want to do is make sure everybody knows about things and can access what we have. So I'm really pleased to say that we're committed to building a forum to make sure that we have better engagement with the Moroccan community, and that's in this year. So we'll be doing that this year. Yes. Yeah, on the back of that question, a follow-up.
Yeah, just on the back of that question, Moroccans have been in the community since the 1960s.
Yeah.
Westway Trust, you know, with the report showing the institutional racism going on, what has the Westway done to eliminate that and also reach out towards the Moroccan community and work in line with members of the board and in the leadership team to include the community?
Yeah. So I haven't been around for all that time that the Westway Trust has been here, so I'm not sure what it's done in the past.
But in the past 6 months, we're talking, since the report came out.
So I will ask others to chip in there if anyone has anything that we've specifically done, apart from all our grants and things being open. We're learning, and so we want to include all our communities. We know we have to build our forums. We're committed to that. But I wonder whether anyone here would like to just contribute to say specifically this issue, which is in the last year. Also, we've got a few hands up, I can see, but in the last year, what we might have done. So I see Osama has their hand up, and Didier. Go ahead. Didier first, then Ikram, and then Osama.
I just wanted to say, in the report, you reported that Westway has established a new way for our community and appointing boards in our leadership.
Mm-hmm.
What is that new way?
The participatory.
Yeah, and inclusive way of working within the community.
So the new way is around centering the community, which is bringing community into decision-making processes. It's about saying that we don't just have a board of trustees who can make every single decision. We don't have an executive team or a staff team that can make every single decision. We rely on this community to be the best organization. And that's the new way. So as examples, we've had community panels make decisions on the design team for the community street. And that's how we got through to Lugadero, who had numerous people who are local people who actually did all of that co-design work. The actual project manager for Community Street, who is a local person, they went through a community panel. Vainu herself, myself as well. And so it's building on that. The co-optees, obviously, of committees, bringing more and more local people onto committees who can actually make these decisions. For instance, a Moroccan Voice. that needs to be within the committees actually speaking up for the Moroccan community.
But what
That's
have you
the
done
process.
to reach out towards the Moroccan community, given the fact that we're, locally, in Goulburn Road, there's so many, but who's been reached? And
Well, I've had personal conversations with members of the Moroccan community, as has Venu. So we are going through that as it stands.
Because
But
obviously you
we can do
recognise
more.
that we do have like first and second generation Moroccans here. English is not their first language. They're not digitally connected, so they won't be, on the internet or be able to access this information unless there's face-to-face or outreach work that's being done.
Can you support? Can you engage, or can you point us to other people who
I
we
would
can
love
engage
to be
beyond who
part
we're
of it
already engaging with?
because this is something that we need to be able to see a change in with the Westway Trust supporting the Moroccan community.
That's excellent. Please come and engage with us afterwards, because we'd love to have you involved in in a number of different ways. I want to go to Ikram first, then Didier.
I'm going to start with criticism for Toby. When you had your people committee up there, you never included supplementary school or parenting. And we have huge impact in the community, working with families, supporting them through the pandemic and even before that. And actually, to mention that, we work with you through our supplementary school with young people to do art work, if you remember. Also, parenting, we support a lot of parents to overcome some of the difficulties for them. That's under umbrella with Westway. And I remember also Usama, he had a project with young people. We had people from our supplementary school and the community engaging with him for Westway to tackle some of the issues in the society, like knife crime and things like that. And actually, I had my daughter involved in that project. So we need, we have to be fair in the community when we speak. We can't just specify the special community that they are doing the work and not the rest. Because we all one body and we all have this kind of sense we are there for each other, regardless where we come from.
Thank you. Thank you. I remember my father's 80th birthday, and he wanted to thank everybody for everything they'd done. And we said to him, just say a general thank you, because if you start saying thank you to some and you miss others, then it's disappointing. Anyway, he didn't listen, and then we had lots of complaints afterwards. But there are lots of community projects that the Westway and all of you have been involved in. And just forgive us if we can't mention them all, but we know that it's going on day in and day out. Didier.
Thank you. The first thing I'm going to do is maybe provide some advice to the trustees and even the director. I had to be raising challenges they have. I will tell you that challenges can be stepping stones or stumbling blocks, but it depends on how you view them. I'm also happy that with the trustees bringing all the figures about the finance that was difficult in the past. The fact you have done it, you are kind of telling the truth. And when you tell the truth, you will never ever worry about you losing your memory. And the truth is always the ally of time. If you say the truth, it's gonna be your ally every time. And if we have made some mistakes, I could have heard when they asked you to put the figures of the big income. The fact you've recognized it and saying in the future you're gonna put it, so you admitting that you're gonna learn from it. So when you fail somewhere, but that can be a success if you want to learn from it. And then I have to say thank you for that. Coming back to what I want to say now is we don't need only to criticize the trust or the committee, but at the same time, we need to tell what they've done in the past. That's what I'm gonna do now. We used to be in top clause number 2 in the offices, sharing the office with migrant organized. But as some of you might know, they have left the premises. We were almost officeless, if we can say homeless or officeless. But we engaged with Westway Trust. At the beginning, it was very difficult because we were at the beginning like defensive. We had that perception that Westway Trust will just kind of lie to us. But we have seen a big progress and a big change in the way we have been engaging with them. Doing that, we try to bring all the organizations that used to be in that office together in a conversation with Westway Trust. They've been supporting us, and then it became even our voice to the council until they gave us some funding to have some space within Westway Trust. My organization, Congo Great Lakes Initiative, in the past, because sometimes we do a lot of things, we don't know what we do. Cannot imagine, we have been running a project in partnership with the University of Cambridge and then even UCL. We had to have an exhibition, but because we didn't have a space here, we need to have that exhibition in Cambridge. And that exhibition had 33,111 who visited the exhibition at the University of Cambridge. That could have happened here if we had a space. So it's just to tell you we're doing a lot of things. And then we're saying thank you to you for supporting us. And then we hope that's you're gonna carry on the same path, because for now I can say we are on the right path. And to see Toby there, because at the beginning, before we started, I was laughing because I say Toby used to be a big voice to criticize things. And then I saw our brother, where is he? Maybe he's gone already. He became a voice as well. Criticizing you. That's what we want. So when you are there, you have to say the truth, always the truth. As I said at the beginning, the truth will always be your ally. Thank you.
Thank you, Didier, and thank you. And can I just acknowledge that actually the only way the trust can be successful is if we hear the testimony like that from the community, because that is what we need to make space for. The Westway Trust can carry on saying we're doing things, but it's really nice to hear it come back from the community. So thank you, Didier, and well done to the staff on that. You mentioned Niles, and Niles is also with us tonight. So may I ask Niles to say a few words, and then I'll come back to you. Yeah, don't worry, I won't forget.
Yes, greetings, family. Stand up here. It's been a long road. It's going to continue to be a long road because we've got a whole heap of work to do. But we do this for those who come before us, for our loved ones in transition, for the health and prosperity of the living and those who are yet to come. Like I've said before, this is about us planting trees that we may not get the privilege to sit under. Yeah, these that we're sowing now. I've got a statement from the CAG, which I want to read out as a collective statement from the CAG in terms of what has been happening in the last year in terms of the review. I've read so much documents in the last 7 years, I have to wear glasses. Me there. Okay. Okay, this is a joint CAG statement. The last year has been challenging for all due to the pandemic. Overall, the progress has been stagnant. However, we have witnessed gradual changes that were impossible when the old guard was in charge. We have also considered the negative impact of the pandemic and the hindrance caused by the constant bereavements, restrictions and mandates, which continue to take their toll on all of us on a daily basis. Additionally, we had to allow a certain amount of time for local community members who took key positions in the organisation to get their bearings with the structure, protocols, and understand the culture created by their predecessors and the continual problems these dynamics produce to date. The Trust is still struggling to come to terms with the report and fully understand, communicate, and implement the information and recommendations. There are 5 accepted principles of reparations: non-repetition, restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, and satisfaction. In the last year, most of our work has fallen into the area of non-repetition, although an essential ingredient. The lack of progress with the other 4 principles remains highly frustrating. The pace of progress has heightened, and some promising signs of a more profound commitment have emerged since the recent appointment of a new CEO. At this stage, it's too early to herald any significant change. The dynamic might begin to change in the near future if plans in the pipeline materialize. Time will tell. The CAG is fully committed to implementing the review's teachings, lessons, and recommendations, and have pledged that we will continue to follow through with this objective until its fruition. Our community has been deeply scarred and traumatized by the Trust's institutionally racist practices, and it will be a long time before the Trust can regain trust or gain trust. And to do so, trust must be developed and earned and firmly rooted in genuine, tangible changes at the grassroots level. We hope this will be the case in the near future, otherwise our next statement might not be as diplomatic as this one. Shay.
Thank you, Niles.
I'd just like to add a little something to that. That was our joint statement, but I'd just like to say a few words as Niles. This has been a long, long, long road. Yeah, I'm glad to see that we're moving in the right direction. Yeah, but there's a lot of things that we need to understand about how this thing is set and how the society that we're living in is set. We would have never got this far if we just followed protocols and rules. I have to say this now. We would not be here today if we didn't break some. If we changed some of the things that weren't right. And that's the courage that this organization is going to need into the future, because we're going to have to step into some areas that is not necessarily the usual things that charities would engage in. But we know the culture that was developed inside the Trust is not an exception to the rule. It's how charities have been set up, and most of them run in our area. So this is an example of the culture that needs to be challenged. One of the people that used to come to these meetings and to get to this place was a man called David Graeber. And you'll have to mind my language for a minute, but he wrote an excellent book. He passed recently, so we pay respects to David Graeber for being on this journey. Yeah. He wrote a book that I think should be in the bookshelf of every charity. And you pardon my language for a minute, but it's called Bullshit Jobs. And it's about charities and about how when we started fighting this battle, when you went to the Westway Trust website, you saw a picture of black children smiling on the front of the website. No evidence of who the Westway Trust was. I made composites of who the Westway Trust was to explain to my community who they were. Yeah? So what I'm saying is, It's not just about this organization, it's about the culture of the society that we live in. At the beginning of lockdown, it was suggested that African Caribbean people are more susceptible to COVID. Yeah? The reality is, and I tried to show people at the time, we're not more susceptible to COVID, we're more susceptible to institutional racism. So whether it's Brexit or whether it's COVID or wherever it is, we're the ones who will be at the bottom of that rung because of how we're perceived in the society and how these organizations run. So I'm just hoping that as the community has come in now, we've got new people here, that this becomes a paradigm. We need to set something that becomes a model for other charities and other, not in just this community, but across the UK and across the globe. Because the culture of charity has used communities all over the world and abused us and used us to make money for corporate forces, and that have done. So I'm glad to see the change, but let's not take our eye off the ball. Yeah, the battle is not over as long as the corporate mind exists, and as much as we have access to this land now, there are forces that will want to take this land back. So let's have patience, let's work together, because the whole battle has been about our community having access to this land that was left for us. There's nowhere else we're going to get that much land, not from the council, not from the injustice we see from Grenfell or anything. We have to come together as a community and work together to make sure this remains community land for as long as the Westway Trust exists.
Thank you. Thanks, Niles. I'd like to just say two things. Firstly, I wanted to say really to the CAG, thank you very much for really fully engaging me and talking with me and coming to share your stories. Even though I'd read the review several times before I got here, it was so important for me to hear it, because there are lots of people who want to talk at a CEO, but it's really great that you've come along and wanting to talk with a CEO. So I really appreciate that. And secondly, I just want to say, recently I spent some time with Clive, who's sitting next to you, and I was riveted and engaged and ashamed and inspired by his stories. And we absolutely mustn't forget those who come before us and those who will come after us. I really fully admire what you say at the beginning of every meeting, because we mustn't forget those memories. They're so important. And although I wasn't sharing them in this community, I was sharing them in other communities. And we were all fighting for the things that you've talked about, and that is to kill racism in society. So thank you for reminding us, and please hold us to account on the progress of the IRR. I did say I would come to this man first. I'm sorry I don't know your name, and then I'll come back to you, Marsha. Okay, sorry, please. I'm sorry I don't know your name. Yeah. Great, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Before I give you my name, I am a part of the whole communities here.
Thank you.
Right? So I don't need to start mentioning where I come from. I'm Hamid, and I'm one of the victims of that crime, which happened on the 14th of June 17. I don't want to go back to the story, yeah? Okay. And my mind is not here, but I'm going to try my best to tell, just to read what I did observe while you were talking about the trust, the Westway Trust, and then RBKC, because RBKC have been telling us and I'm not going to carry on saying that I'm a victim, because I am not a victim anymore. I'm just a part of the community at the moment, yeah? So when we go to because what I did so before the 14th of June 17 and then after, I did observe a lot of things wrong from far. I just see what's going on. Okay? From the churches to the mosques what I did observe is a lot of things wrong. And I see a lot of people jumping everywhere. I'm sorry, please, don't look at me that I am here I'm telling the truth, because I don't care, because I lived my life and I did live my full-time life. Now I am just doing my spare time, the extra time of my life, right? You've been talking about the sports. I did meet with Prince Charles, and then we talk about their youth. Their youth, it cost them about 3 million. We are not allowed there. That's now. He gave us 1 hour in one day. I'm going to come to a few points, yeah? So we didn't bother to go there anymore. As a victim of that crime, all the survivor and the bereaved, they don't go there. Well, you can't take me, myself, as a professional trainer, qualified, you can't RBKC telling me to go to the Westway. I'm not going to go and meet with the kids there. What, you're going to teach me how to train? No, that's another thing. So I might keep jumping from A to B to C, but please just forgive me, yeah? Okay, RBKC, they're talking about the sports. We're gonna send you to the Holmes, which Holmes is the version now, yeah? Well, we'll give you a golden card. I don't need that. So maybe some people are gonna use it. What we've done, as a victim, I've been going to the curve. So the curve is next to the tower, because most of the victim and then the bereaved didn't want to go to the curve. So I've never met you before, but maybe you are listening to something strange now, yeah? So please just give me a chance to talk. Right? Time, like everyone. Thank you. We're talking about the curve. I went to the curve, the curve, because I can't hide it. I live near. I see the tower every day. So I have to live on with my life. I'm not going to start giving this bullshit, giving excuses. I'm not going to. Fine, I have to use to it. I see the tower every day. I'm a trader. I work. I've got my business, right? Another point, you did mention the government did support the people on the COVID time. We didn't get a single P. Me, I'm talking about myself. I didn't get nothing from the government. Why? Because I didn't work from the 14th of June 17 up to today. So I'm not shouting. I'm just raising my voice, I'm sorry, yeah? I never used to talk like this, but I'm fine. I'm speaking from my heart. This is no fake talk. Excuse me, yeah? So we didn't get nothing from the government, but I did receive the bill just lately from the Inland Revenue, a few thousand to be paid. I'm on hold. My business is on hold. I went back to work, but something went wrong, but I will be going back to work. The sports, yeah. I did create, I did get a lot of help from the curve. I'm not here to talk because some people they are in the. So we did get some support from the curve, of course, because the bereaved and the victim they are in GU in Kensington High Street. We go there as well. I don't care. I go there and there. No one can tell me what to do. I'm not a child here. I've got my kids, and I go the curve and then the GU space in Kensington High Street. At the curve, we did create a kitchen for the community, and then a place there as a small gym, because the survivor and the victims, they want to be together because they're shy, We've got cases. And now we've got a lot of people comes there. So the council RBKC did engage and did help. We got the equipment, the material, everything. I just gave you certificate lately to the people who come and train there. I've met with people. I was the first Moroccan to fight for All Stars at the Harrow Road with Mr. Ake. My first fight was at the Cafe Royal, Regent Streets. I'm not here to have a title. Me, as I said, I'm living my extra time life. So, at the gym, which is we start dealing with kids, me, I get support. In the meantime, I'm supporting. Sorry, I'm.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Stop? No, I want you to make.
I'll make it shorter quickly. Yeah. I'm not giving a story. Yes, just a few things. I'm going to part of them, and then because some people did speak, but I've been waiting as well. So
yes, thank you. Go ahead.
I not need. I'm going to be quick as possible.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Where was I? At the curve.
So we've got some people, we start training them, nice, happy. Now there is a problem going on with the curve because maybe the curve is going to bomb. You're going to delete the curve from there. There is few millions there in the, I don't know what's going on. So the RBKC, they did pay for us a lot of equipment. And some people now, they start jumping. You want to take that material even from the kitchen? Look at the money. Where is the money is going? So that money from the Westway or maybe from the RBKC, they paid a lot of stuff. People want to take everything instead of waiting and or store them things, and then we might use them later on. That's another thing. Because we don't have our community, you know, as I said to me, I'm a part of the whole community, but our community as Moroccan, the people that came in 1960 can't speak English, so there's a problem with RBKC. They think there is still the previous people, they can't. There's a new generation now. People go to the mosque. Yes, we go to the mosque. I go to the mosque. I'm proud of being going to the mosque, and I'm proud of myself going to the mosque. So we go to the mosque, we stay there for 5, 10, 20 minutes, and then we are out. Where? Go where? Go to the pub. I don't go to the pub. I'm sorry. I respect people. I go to the pub. There's a pub there. If you want to go and have a drink, I can go. No problem at all. And as you know, I've been doing my charity from my money, from my pocket. I don't ask anyone to give me nothing. I've been doing the food for the marsh since up to today. I've just been delivering some food to the church or to the mosque or whatever. I'm not here to ask or to beg. I don't beg. I work. I'm not on benefits. I'm not on this university. I'm not on nothing. I still want to go back to my work. So now we are here hard asking you nicely, just make sure, you know, a lot of things going wrong from RBKC because everything they are giving thousands of pounds. Where is this money going? Where is this money is going? So now we are with Westway. Westway, right, please, let us respect you and make sure what you got to have someone who is going to control what's going on. You can't just give you can't just let things go in same as RBKC. RBKC, they're missing us a lot. And I'm not accusing everyone there. There is some nice people there, of course. I just had a meeting with Kim Smith-Taylor today. Nice person. He's helping. He's supporting. So, but please just look at our situation as I am Moroccan. Yeah, I'm a British Moroccan. So we don't have nowhere to go. Like what the other lady said, there is some people they can't speak English. Where are they going to go? They're going to come to you.
No,
You're going to be able. There is some people who can support.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about this. It took me so long. I'm respect. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for speaking out. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you. Thank you, Hamid. Thank you. Thank you, Hamid. Okay, so I want to go back to Marcia, and then is there anyone else who has a burning, anyone else who hasn't spoken yet, who has a burning question? Romijo, we'll come to you next.
Hi, everybody. I suppose a lot of you know me through the consultation we've been doing to have an extension to the Garden and Building Ecology Centre and a community centre that serves all the community. As you're all aware, Maxilla is an open space that welcomes everybody. I've been hearing the same common theme through everyone here, really, that while we've been hearing a lot of promises, there's been a lot of planning and a lot has happened for which, as a disadvantaged community, we are grateful for. So I think everyone here doesn't want it misinterpreted that we're attacking the Westway. We're not. We're grateful for the changes that has been made so far. What people want to see now is consolidated, realistic and tangible responses on paper. We no longer need to hear about how hard it's been to get to this point. We've all lived it, we've all felt it, including trust employees, trustees, right across the board. Everyone has now had some kind of feeling about what's gone on, about the institutional racism report, about not having community spaces, for the different elements of our community, because that's what's not been recognised. North Kensington is a diverse community. So yes, the West Indians need something for the West Indians, who have been wiped off the map, actually, in regards to the Westway Trust. The Moroccans need something for the Moroccans. And I will say to them, if you don't insist and don't keep up your fight, you'll be wiped off the map, just like the West Indians have been, who fought and struggled for places and to build under this Westway from the 1950s. And they was the first to be wiped out. There is no West Indian community centres along the Westway. My family owned a house that was destroyed to build this Westway. And that is why I will always remain passionate about the original, about the original remit of the Westway Trust, which was to provide all the things that's in your website, which I won't bother to repeat because it's there.
Okay.
And we know about it. But what we want to see in 2021, from you as a new CEO, is no more talk, but action.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Marcia, for the reminder. Can I go to Amicio first, please, and then we'll come to Jalis?
Hello. I'm from the local community. I've been here my whole life. I have a little sports CIC here at the moment. Following on from some of the stuff that you've just said and some of the nice words Toby said before, I wanted to delve a little bit deeper into the fact that you said the board members and the trustees are now going to be more reflective of the community. And I thought a lot of the comments that I've heard today would be resolved by people in the board and the trustees being reflective of the community. So I'm talking about stuff like North African people, Moroccan people, West Indian people. If they're part of the trustee and the board membership system, then a lot of those concerns would be apparent to the board anyway. They wouldn't have to come up in these conversations, in these forums, because they're reflected by the community. So obviously you said the board is going to be reflective of the community, the trustees are going to be reflective of the community, but how and how we work this out? So I don't know all the board members and the trustees, and this is my first time coming to an AGM. But obviously that's a big promise. So I want to know, how is that actionable, and how do we decide what's reflective of the community?
Okay.
And what is the breakdown of the board membership at the moment?
Okay.
In regards to gender, age, ethnicity, background, when we're talking about reflectivity?
So I want to, by way of answering both Marcia's question about what next and also your question about who are the trustees, as you leave today, we'd love to offer you something to look at, which is about our plans for the future. And it's an invitation, really, to hear the sort of summary of the thoughts that we've had over the last few months. And I hope that many of you who I've spoken to will see your thoughts reflected in that. And then we'll be, again, having a series of invitations out so that you can come and talk to us about our plans so that we can get towards the actions that are in those plans. So I know that my team have those, I think, just outside, ready to distribute. But they look like this. They're a very short 8-page document, which are a bit of a blueprint about how we're thinking about the horizon. So please pick one of those up. Jalis, can I come to you first, and then I'll come to lots of questions. We don't have that long. We will finish soon, but I'll go to Jalis first, and then to I'm trying to remember your name. It'll come to me. Yes, that's right, Dini. Thank you. So Jalis, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Jalis. I'm a tenant in the arcade, in Portobello Green Arcade. I've been a tenant there for 3 years. And I just want to know, what are you guys going to do regarding the arcades? Because there is nothing in the arcade. There is no marketing. There is no passing trade. There is absolutely There is no business in the arcade. It's like the trust actually forget about us. I've been sending numerous emails to Robert Harvey for months. I don't even get an answer. What's happening with the arcades?
Well, I mean, the arcade, as you know.
Can I play on?
Yes, go ahead, Gary. Go
I'm Gary,
ahead.
and I also have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not just what's happening in the arcade. On the weekends, thousands of, like 25,000 people on average, from what I understand, frequent Portobello Road, and we're hidden inside the arcade. You have the traders that hide us inside, that are blocking the entrance, and we're paying rent, and we have no traffic flow, and we're hidden from the traders that are outside, our outside on outside the green. So there's something that needs to be done where that needs to be opened up. I've voiced this to you, and many times, but I've been here 5 years and nothing's been done. We've been talking to several, and it's like nothing has been done.
Yeah.
It's an easy fix, not rocket science.
And I know also, Gary, we've talked about lighting outside the arcade, the front entrance.
Not just lighting. It's we need it opened up because you cannot see inside. Yeah, it's blocked. Everything's blocked. So
sorry, I can't hear you, and people online can't. So first, Gary, finish, and then pass it back to Jalis.
I was just accentuating what he was saying. On the weekend, we are blocked. The stall holder, they are leaning on all the trusses wall. We do have 3 major entrances. So the people who are walking on Portobello Road, the tourists and everybody else, they can have access from Portobello Road into the arcade via those 3 entrances. Okay. Those entrances are blocked on Friday, on Saturday, and on Sunday by the stall holder. I've been talking about this since I signed my lease. Nothing has been done. Okay. I have to organize events in my shop every weekend for me to have some sales. Okay. There is nobody see us. There is no lighting. There is no signage. The stall holder, they're cramping the place in front. There is no entrances. It's like the Westway Trust just forget about us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for making your point very clearly. Thank you for making your point clearly. Yeah, I know you've made it several times. You're saying you've made that several times. So thank you. And at the moment, nothing's been happening. So what Gary's saying, which I'd like to capture as a suggestion, is a quick fix, and it's a quick fix he's suggesting, which we can explore, which is about looking at the rentals in the immediate entrance. But I think that it's a longer conversation about the arcade and encouraging footfall. But thank you for the suggestion, Dini.
Regarding past, well, what is now, Base 66, well, it used to be PlayStation, which I was involved with 20 years ago. Now I actually run, meanwhile, BMX Club, and we've actually had to have a very painful meeting with them regarding using the space for the local people, because...
Is this the skate park?
Yes, the skate park, which, is world famous. Yeah. There's probably only 4 or 5 kids that I know that can actually afford to go there, because it's not £8 a session, and they do an after-school thing. Well, it does, Gary, right, which is great, right? But that was sponsored by Nike. That was paid for by Nike. Now it's paid for by an energy drink company, right? Which is, £7 for 3.5 hours. It's cheaper than a babysitter. I know it
So is your point that you're trying to speak?
Yeah. We need some. They got rid of the BMX
So
track
you
down
need
at
some
Latimer that was
brokerage.
there for years. There was the Westway BMX Club, which I want to reinvigorate.
Yeah.
You know,
So
and get it going again.
Are you saying that you need some brokerage, do you, with Bay 66?
Well, I've spoke to them and they've agreed
Yeah.
to let us use the place for free. Obviously, because when I said, you know, either that or, you know, I'm just going to go to my mate who works at the Guardian and expose everything shady that you've been doing here for years, you know, which I don't want to do.
Yeah. Well, let us know. Let us know if you make headway. Okay, I've got time for one more question and then an announcement. Can I take someone who hasn't spoken, Christopher? Christopher, let's, and then there's plenty of time for networking afterwards. But then I want to end the evening very positively with some congratulations that are in order. Go ahead, Christopher.
Okay. Thank you, Venu. Just to follow on from what Marcia said in her very passionate speech about the Ecology Centre at Bay 13. Obviously, sorry, how's that? Just following on then from Marcia's comments about the Ecology Centre at Bay 13, and it's very heartening tonight. I should say, by the way, my name's Chris. I've been working with Marcia and her team of volunteers there for the last 6 months on a project for the Ecology Centre and a community hub that I know has been going on for a lot longer. But it's been a great pleasure of mine to join the team this last 6 months, and we've managed to bring the scheme forward after some extensive community consultation to the point where we're now speaking. We have a meeting this week with the council about a pre-application. And great to hear Toby and Tom mention it in both of their speeches. There is a sense now, I think, that there's a real momentum behind what's happening in Bay 13 particularly. And my question is this. I suppose it echoes what Marcia said about making things more concrete. I feel like as someone new to the area, I'm very, you know, this is my first Westway AGM I've attended, so you have to forgive me for any faux pas, but for a grassroots and volunteer-led community organisation, it needs a certain amount of certainty with which to go forward, and I feel like there are two key items for the Ecology Centre in 2022, which I know Venu we've spoken about separately, and I know hopefully it will be discussed at the board on Monday. And that is that the community garden there, Hope Gardens as it is known, grew up from a very particular set of circumstances, and it's in a very emotional space, a very meaningful space for the community. But whenever we have a feeling at the moment that whenever we try and narrow things down with the Westway, particularly in terms of land leasing and ownership, I know Toby mentioned it's a complicated picture down there. But my question is, within your own plans for this first quarter, do you intend to bring that discussion forward with Just Solutions and Trees for Grenfell, particularly referencing Bay 13, and what are the sort of timescales that are being talked about internally? Thank you.
So what I will say is that the board are discussing that project, and we'll come back to you after the board have discussed it, which is right. I'm not going to have a board discussion here, so we will come back to you. But what we have all acknowledged is, firstly, the remarkable work that has been done with Hope Gardens. I've walked past there many times, and often I see people stopping there and reflecting. It's a really, really important space for this community, and it has been done under the leadership of Marcia and other organisations that she's worked with, and I know she's consulted widely. So, you know, we commend that work. My door is always open, and we would love to work more with Trees for Grenfell. So please take that on board and take that sincerely. Okay, whilst we're Luke, I want to speak with you. We'll speak afterwards. I just want. Okay, well, they're around afterwards. But what I just want to say before we finish, because clearly there is talent in this community and there is resilience in this community. And it's so important that we celebrate that and we celebrate the role models we have. And we do have an incredible role model here today. And, you know, this is at the danger of singling people out, but I am going to single her out. Because I've spent some time with her and she's told me about how she's made her career. And she has a rotor license for a helicopter and she has a fixed blade license to fly planes. And she is here working day in and day out in this community, often at her own cost. And I know that she's been honoured with a lady in front of her name. And so I just wanted to take this moment to celebrate that achievement and congratulate Lisa Dodds. And also, and you know, credit to you. Please come. Please come. Please come. Lisa, come. Because this is someone who's achieved so much, as well as having so many family commitments. Come up this way, Lisa. And we've just brought a small gift for you, just to celebrate your moment. Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, they're a bit wet at the bottom.
My name is Captain Lisa Dodd Thomas. I just want to say thanks to everyone. I've been living in Rapid Grove for 25 years. I spent 19 years in the aviation industry. Living in Rapid Grove, I didn't know a lot of people. I just recently came out after Grenfell, where I met Niles, and Niles has actually opened me to the community. I'm doing this flying with encouragement of the community as well. We have like different scholarships that we can offer young people in the community. Asking Westway Trust for some support to open a flight center in the community to help kids so that they'll be able to join us. There's several jobs in the airport that these kids, they do not have any exposure at all. Without us exposing those jobs, we are not going to see the talents that we have in the community. So I would like to work with Westway and Mr. Niles and all local people. You know, you have to find us, not we just coming out there and say, can we have some grant? There are people in the community that the community engagement team can actually come out, look for the people, like what Mr. Niles did, find us and get us to work with the community. I've been going to the airport like 18 years. I've never seen anyone like myself wearing a pilot uniform. It takes me like 5 minutes to get to the train station, but if I'm wearing my uniform, it takes me an hour. Because the kids in the community, they want to do it, they want to see it. I can't do it by myself. I need some help. I need some support. If we manage to get 3 pilots a year out of the community, it's possible to do that. But I really need help to get this done.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Lisa. What a terrific role model. Thank you. Okay, everybody, I'm going to draw this bit of the meeting to a close. The trustees are here, I'm here, the staff are here. So please stay in network. Please stay and just have a few drinks and finish up with whatever's left. But we look forward to seeing you again many times during the year, but also here again next year. Thank you so much for coming. Your time is really important to us. Thank you.